Plymouth Township Planning Commission meeting will come to order at 6:30 p.m. Secretary, please call roll.
Dennis Sabulski.
Here.
Tim Boyd here. Kendra Barbarino is excused. Bob Dorashevitz is excused. David Lodowick.
Here.
Stuart Pop.
Here.
Bill Ikes.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And Ms. Howell, you have an announcement to make about speaking?
I do. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Laura Ha. Just as a reminder, it's been a bit difficult for folks at home and for the recording on YouTube to catch some of what the discussion has been. So we want to make sure that planning commissioners, the applicants, and the public, when you're speaking with the microphone, to be clear, to be using the microphones, and to clearly enunciate, please, so that everybody can hear the same discussion.
Thank you. And if you're having trouble seeing or hearing us here, just raise your hand so whoever's speaking knows to speak up a little bit more. We're all conscious of it, so we're going to try our hardest. With that, I have no changes to tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve as submitted?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda of March 26th, 2025 as submitted.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Boyd and supported by Commissioner Pop to approve the agenda as submitted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And is there a motion to approve the minutes? Any additions or corrections?
I make a motion to approve the minutes on February 19th as written. Second it.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Pop and supported by Commissioner Ikes to approve the February 19th minutes as submitted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now's the time for public comments for any non-agenda items. So if you're here to talk about something that's on the agenda, now's not the time to talk about that. It comes a little later in the meeting. Any non-agenda items that people want to talk about? Okay, we'll move on. We have application PC 2543, the conditional rezoning for an auto wash. And so, Ms. Howell, if you could give us your planning report?
Yes, thank you. Before getting into the report itself, I just wanted to provide a little bit more background on this application and what's being requested. This is a conditional rezoning application, which means that the Planning Commission must hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, as they are the final authority in a rezoning. Since it is a conditional rezoning, that means that the applicant has voluntarily offered conditions to be placed on the property. And as a conditional rezoning, the township is not in a legal position to request any other conditions. So these conditions have to be freely and openly offered by the applicant. The applicant's offered conditions are available on the township's website, and they're included in the packet, of course. If anyone is interested in reviewing those in more detail. I'd also like to note that there is a consent judgment on this property. However, that is a matter for the Board of Trustees to take up at a later date. The purview of the Planning Commission is to look at the conditional rezoning that's before you and to make a recommendation to the board. So tonight is the focus of the conditional rezoning. And as a rezoning, the building design, the facade materials and such, those are not pertinent to the discussion. Those would come later during the site plan review process if the application progresses. So right now we're just looking at the rezoning and the conditions that the applicant has voluntarily offered. Lastly, I wanted to note that this application may look familiar because in 2023, a very similar application was presented to the Planning Commission on the subject site with a conditional rezoning that involved a drive-through restaurant, presumably Starbucks at the time. A public hearing was held in 2023 with the Planning Commission. That application never moved on, so it never went before the Board of Trustees. and it since has kind of just languished. And now the applicant has submitted a revised proposal for the site. And since the conditions have changed, we're starting back at square one with the public hearing here tonight. Any questions on the kind of the history or the application?
You could just run down for the, if you could just run down for the folks here, the various steps. What happens if the decision is to deny it, or if it's approved, what are the next steps? And
So tonight, looking for a recommendation to the Board of Trustees either way. The Board of Trustees would then take up that application for the conditional rezoning and approve or deny. Simultaneously, the consent judgment would need to be reviewed. I'd defer to the Township Attorney, Kevin Bennett, on additional questions or guidance for the consent judgment. Should all of that be worked out, then the site would need special land use approval and site plan.
And those all have another public hearing, correct?
Just the special land use,
Yes, right.
correct. All right, so for the review before you, the conditional rezoning, the applicant is requesting to revise the zoning on the property from the OS-ARC Office Service Ann Arbor Corridor District to the ARC Ann Arbor Road Corridor District. The property is shown on the screen there. It's approximately 2.5 acres and contains a vacant office building. Looking at the criteria for reviewing a rezoning request, the first is that, will the proposed rezoning be in accordance with the basic intent and purposes of the zoning ordinance? We've provided a chart here, this is on page 2 of our report, that details the existing land use compared to the current zoning districts and the future land use designations of the 2015 master plan. So the site is surrounded by a mix of uses. To the north is residential, directly surrounding it, other office uses. To the south, the Henry Ford Health System facility and other commercial entities such as the dealerships. And then moving further west along the corridor becomes even more commercial with Burger King, LA Fitness, of course, this town center. The second criteria is, will the proposed amendment further the comprehensive planning goals and policies of the township, and is it consistent with the future land use map of the master plan? I think it's important to note that a rezoning from the current OS-ARC to the ARC district would allow for a more intensive auto-oriented use, which would be consistent with uses to the south and to the west of the site. However, it would not provide the more gradual transition expected from the current OS-ARC zoning designation in relation to the residential to the north. We also note that along the corridor, the Ann Arbor Road corridor, that parcels designated as the OS Office Service ARC typically occur in clusters. And by rezoning the property to the ARC, this cluster would be broken up. But we also note that at the same time, the use of office buildings throughout the country has been experienced significant reduced occupancy, and that utilization of this parcel may need to be explored, as there really hasn't been much interest in the development of it in recent years.
You know how long it's been vacant?
I don't have the exact date, but it's been quite a few years. We note that in relation to the more intense auto-oriented use, that access to the site is provided both from Ann Arbor Road and from Haggerty Road. The Ann Arbor Road access is improved due to the installation of the traffic light resulting from the Henry Ford Health System development. So it's likely that this traffic light would aid in facilitating movement in and out of the site better than other locations along the corridor, and to handle additional traffic. We also note that should the site be brought into compliance with the current zoning standards during the site plan review process, impacts to neighboring properties could be reduced. Right now, the site is not compliant with zoning ordinance standards in terms of screening and vegetation and open space. And with a new development, those requirements would be brought into compliance. We also note that while an auto wash is generally considered a more intensive commercial use, especially due to the noise it may generate, it can be made more or less intensive with adjustments to the building design. Typically, the car washes that we've seen proposed have outdoor vacuums and such. This is all proposed to be enclosed within the building to help mitigate that. I note that if the Planning Commission finds that the use as proposed is more intensive than the site is able to accommodate, a reduction in the number of stacking spaces provided or a smaller facility may reduce potential nuisances from neighboring residential properties. The third criteria is, will the amendment correct an inequitable situation created by the zoning ordinance rather than merely grant special privileges? And the rezoning would not grant special privileges. The site would still need to be developed in full compliance with the zoning ordinance. They're not asking for a variance at this point. The fourth criteria is, will the amendment result in unlawful exclusionary zoning? No. The fifth requirement is the proposed zoning consistent with the zoning classifications of the surrounding land? We provided a table, it's on page 4 of the report, even though this isn't a site plan, we wanted to break down the landscaping that's being proposed in order to show what existing standards will be met with the plan and where the applicant is proposing to go above and beyond those standards. So in terms of street trees and the screening wall and the parking area screening and their interior parking lot landscaping, all of the exact requirements are proposed to be met, which is what would be expected of any development. What's different are the third and fourth rows in this table with the green highlighting that show that they are providing additional landscaping to the north property line that is significantly above and beyond what the ordinance calls for and would not be required with another development because they are voluntarily, again, offering those. So where a 6 to 8 foot wide planting strip is required today along that north property line, they are proposing a 40-foot wide planting area, which is an additional 38 feet. In terms of the number of trees, 9 trees are required along that north property line. They are proposing 102 additional for a total of 111. So this is a significant change to the landscaping that goes above and beyond what will be provided for another permitted or special land use. So we note that while this is still on the concept plan and not part of the site plan, it is proposed as a condition of the rezoning and would be a long-term benefit for the area with the additional landscaping. The sixth criteria is, could all the requirements in the proposed zoning classification be complied with on the subject parcel? The zoning ordinance has a number of use standards related to car wash facilities. There's 9 specific standards that are listed in the ordinance. It appears that the applicant can comply with these standards, and these would be something that would be fleshed out later in the process should they receive this initial approval to move forward. Additionally, on the bottom of page 5, we note that I think this is an important distinction. The dimensional standards for both the current OS ARC zoning district and the proposed ARC zoning district are identical. So in terms of the setbacks and the building height and the massing of the structure, what can be built there today will not be different than what could be built there under the proposed zoning. We provide a table here on page 6 that details the required setbacks of both, and building heights of both the OS ARC and the ARC district, and what has been, approximately proposed by the applicant at this stage. Again, this would have to be fleshed out during the site plan review, but they meet these standards, and there is no difference in what could be built there today. If the Applied Fitness building was demolished and the new office building was constructed, it could theoretically have the same footprint, setbacks, building height. Our last page details the conclusions and the options that the Planning Commission has this evening for this application. Again, as a conditional rezoning, this is just a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, who are the final authority. So there would be a recommendation of approval, a recommendation of denial, or tabling the application if additional information was warranted. However, I feel like there has been sufficient information provided with this application. Our recommendation contains several findings of fact. So regardless of the Planning Commission's recommendation tonight, it is very important that it contains findings of fact. Since this memo was published with the agenda, the township has received a considerable amount of public comments and concerns, which will be discussed shortly. So taking into consideration those public concerns that have been raised, the Planning Commission may find that A and B in the recommendation cannot be met or satisfied. However, C, D, and E, those three, findings still largely apply. These are true statements that apply to the requested rezoning. So the proposal will provide extensive landscape buffering along the north property line as an appropriate buffer to transition from an adjacent single-unit residential development significantly beyond what is required by the zoning ordinance. The proposed use can comply with the zoning ordinance requirements specific to the use standards for auto wash facilities as required in Article 14. So again, they're not requesting a variance and can comply with those use standards. And then lastly, the rezoning would not allow for any increased setbacks or building heights as the dimensional standards of the OS ARC district and the ARC district are identical. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have this evening. Thank you.
I wanted to touch on something and inform the audience here that our primary focus today is to look at the use of the land. If this were approved, then they have to get a special land use, and there'll be a public hearing for that, as stated earlier, and then there's a site plan approval. So we have a lot of information that was put on the web showing the site plan, and that is an important item of discussion. But the first thing that needs to be resolved is the use of the property. And so we want to focus, is this an appropriate use for the property? And what would be the alternatives? So I'm directing this question to our planner. If you could just summarize what kinds of uses could be put on that parcel given the current zoning as opposed to what's being requested.
The possibility of future land uses does increase with the rezoning to the ARC district because that zoning designation allows for a larger variety of uses. When you think about the Ann Arbor Road corridor as a whole and moving westward, most of those uses could potentially be on that site. The applicant has in their statement of voluntary conditions, which I'll show on the screen here, they have excluded some specific uses. So as part of the conditional rezoning, schools would not be permitted, private clubs and lodge halls, mortuaries, religious institutions, bus stations, commercial parking garages, and public schools. However, in the future, an individual could propose, let's say, another veterinarian clinic or a drive-through restaurant or a sit-down restaurant. Just thinking about other uses that are along the corridor.
And again, if the rezoning were approved, the owners of that property could choose to sell it, or they could find out that this is not a viable business proposal, and they may choose to go a different direction, as long as that use was consistent with whatever the zoning would allow. So that's something that you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind. And then also, just to let you know what the steps are, we've already heard from the planner, and I'll open it up for discussion amongst the commission. If they have any questions, then we'll call the applicant up and they'll give us their presentation. And then we'll have the public hearing. Folks can come up and state what your concerns are, pros and cons, that kind of thing. And we'll make a note of that. And when we close the public hearing, we'll direct those questions to the applicant, excuse me, and then the applicant, I would think, is also taking notes on those comments. So does the commission have any questions on the planner's report at this point? Okay. Well, is the applicant here?
Right here. I'm Jay. You people approved this project, is that correct?
Well, during the public hearing, you can ask your question. Right now, we're still in the middle of having this presentation done, so we know what we're dealing with, and all you folks as well.
You know, I oppose it.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll have an opportunity in a few minutes to state the reasons, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Yeah, if you could speak through the mic so we can make sure everybody here and watching it on the internet can understand it.
Sounds good.
I'd also like to ask the public, this proposal is quite a bit different than the previous ones that we've seen and discussed here. So, and it's also different in some ways to that flyer that many of you have seen. So it's really important to listen closely to what the presenters are saying here, as well as our discussion up here. So I did want to just mention that.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Gabe Schuckman. I'm with El Car Wash. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I want to start off that Laura was kind enough to share with us all your correspondence and all of your letters. And with that, what I wanted to make sure of, even before the public hearing started, I wanted to address as many of those questions as possible. So with me today, I have Eric Harrison. Eric Harrison's with El Car Wash. He's our Vice President of Product Integration. He's going to really focus on today on noise and equipment. I know noise was a really major concern, so I really want to address that. Also with us today is Jill Bauer. She's our Senior Traffic Engineer. She's going to talk about traffic. We're going to talk about, currently there's a vacant fitness building on the site. We're going to talk about the traffic that a fitness building brings, the traffic that a car wash generates. So we're going to talk about that this evening as well. Also with me is Mitch Harvey. Mitch is with Stonefield Engineering. He's going to talk about the landscaping. He's going to talk about lighting. That was another major item that was brought up in a lot of the letters. And he's going to talk about environmental impact. And we also have Eric Myers, who's the architect who put together the renderings and the architectural elevations for the building. So again, thank you for having us today, and I'm excited to talk about this project and answer any questions. So if we don't answer any questions, we'll answer some questions after the public hearing. I'm going to give you a very quick brief background on El Car Wash. El Car Wash, we're based out of Miami, Florida. We have locations in Michigan and in Florida. We have 70 locations open today. We originally came here in 2023 and made an application. It's a different application, and we wanted to come back with a better application. The original application that we presented to the community was with a Starbucks drive-through and a car wash. And based upon community feedback, we realized that's too much for the site. So we wanted to come back with a project and a narrative that hopefully assuages a lot of those issues and concerns that people have. We came back with the first fully enclosed car wash in the state of Michigan. There is no exterior vacuums whatsoever. All of the activities are taking place within the building itself. And that's going to really answer a lot of the different noise questions. So that was really what the homework we've been doing over the past 24 months to come back with a better proposal, a better project, and hopefully a project that we can get your support on. Community is an important part to us. We have 250,000 members at El Car Wash. We're big supporters of various community initiatives. We have 2 locations open right now in Brighton and in Madison Heights, and we're supporting a lot of the different youth football programs and various things like that. Outside of that, we're the official car wash of the Detroit Lions, and I'm proud to announce that we have Barry Sanders as our partner in the business as well. We're really excited to bring a high-end, environmentally sensitive, aesthetically good-looking building to the Plymouth community. We're excited not to be a restaurant, a gas station, or drive-through. We don't believe we'll be adding traffic to the area, and we're going to address all those various different things that I had mentioned that were in your letters as well. So the first person that I'd like to call up is Eric Harrison. He's the Vice President of Product Integration, who I mentioned earlier. We're going to talk about noise to start.
Hi, my name is Eric Harrison. Just so we're clear, I was born in Michigan, live in Michigan, operated in car washes in Michigan for 20 plus years. My job is to purchase the equipment, set up the washes, make sure everything runs smoothly. Right now, like Gabe said, we have a wash in Brighton, we have one in Madison Heights. Noise is a common question. The really neat thing is we've been able to check to see how much noise we're creating based on the entrance. Once we get to 125 feet from the entrance, we're creating as low as 60 decibels, which to you means, or to me means absolutely nothing. But it ends up, as we look it up, it's a quiet conversation. It's kind of a loud dishwasher. That's the little bit of noise at 125 feet without all the trees. So that's what we're producing at the 2 washes we are. The vacuums, which are enclosed, which is a big deal. Madison Heights, they're sort of enclosed. We get to about 50 feet, we're at 62 decibels. So again, about the same amount. That's something that I take a lot of pride in. It's something that as we build each wash, I find different ways to try to make it a little bit nicer, a little bit quieter, those type of things. So they're very important to me, as I know they are to everybody else.
I don't know if you can pull up the site plan, Laura, but I want to talk about what 50 feet or 100, what that means from a property line perspective. So let me just kind of give a little bit of a perspective on it, if that's possible.
Sir, we need you to speak into the mic so everybody can hear you.
I don't know if there's a pointer that I can use or anything of that nature. But Eric, just from the perspective, where is it going to be 60 decibels? Let's make sure we orient everybody to what that is.
If you take the entrance, which is the other end towards, because we're, right there. So if you go 125 feet, again.
So one quick orientation, where the red trees are at, that's Ann Arbor Road. Where the green trees are in the back, that's the residential area. So that's where Orange Lawn and Pine Tree is behind there.
Yep, so as we get to the back of those trees, if there were no trees there, then we're getting to that 60 decibels. The trees will make a huge difference, obviously, but let's say there are no trees where our other 2 sites are that way. That just gives a general idea. As you can also see where the vacuums are enclosed, 50 feet comes nowhere near those trees. So that's the sound level that we're trying to accomplish.
Now, Eric, what's the current sound level on the property line?
For this? We measured 60. 60 yesterday? Okay. So it's currently 60.
So we're not going to be adding any additional noise. If anything, that 60 decibels is before the trees are placed, 119 trees that we were talking about. So hopefully we'll even be reducing the noise level. In addition to that, if it was an offer that we could make, if we had to do a noise study to prove all this out, we'd be happy to do that as well and offer that as one of the conditions of the rezone. Terrific. Next, I'm going to call up Jill Bauer. She's our traffic consultant, and she can answer any questions related to traffic.
Okay, hello. So we completed a traffic impact study for this site. We did this 24 months ago when there was a more dense use on site. With just having the car wash on site, there's little to no impact to the roadway, having that traffic signal at the driveway that exists. So on the board up here, the other thing we wanted to look at is what kind of traffic is this site going to generate compared to the current uses? So with the medical office building or having some type of a fitness facility, you can see that we're either generating a similar number of trips during those morning and afternoon peaks on the roadway, or actually less in the case of the health and fitness center in that afternoon peak. So overall, the daily trips to the site are about the same as the other uses that are possible out there today. So really, the impact of traffic is pretty minimal with this change in rezoning.
And now Mitch Harvey, who's going to discuss the landscaping, the lighting, and the environmental items.
If you could pull up the landscaping plan, I think that would be the best one to look at. Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Mitchell Harvey. I want to briefly touch on some of the site improvements that we're making to this currently vacant site. So regarding lighting, we're going to be removing all the existing outdated fixtures and be replacing with fully shielded, dark sky compliant LED fixtures. We've oriented these lights to face into the site, so there'll be no spillover into the neighbors. And we've modeled these lights to prove out a 0-foot candle at the property line without the inclusion of any of the trees. So those evergreen trees that I'll touch on a little bit later are just going to add that additional buffer. From an environmental standpoint, this is really specific to this car wash use. I think they really go above and beyond with their attention to detail and how they're handling some of these operations associated with the car wash. So the first thing I want to touch on is all the soaps. They're biodegradable. Once the car is washed, that water is actually going to be able to be reclaimed and reused for future car washes. So how that works is it goes through a reverse osmosis system, an oil water separator, and then a 3-stage settling tank. That allows us to use 90% of the water reuse within the site for future car washes. Stormwater, as the site currently sits today, there's not really much stormwater infrastructure in place. What we're proposing is a new underground detention system with water quality unit to improve the site from a stormwater management standpoint. The final item I want to touch on, and the one I think that we've really went above and beyond here, would be the landscaping. So overall, we're proposing 38,000 square foot of landscaping across the site, give or take. That's roughly 2 times the amount of landscaping or green space that is out there today. Really, we wanted to be sensitive to the neighbors to the north. We knew that this was going to be a concern, so we really wanted to focus in on that. So if you look at the existing site today, the parking lot goes up to about 6 feet from the property line. Really, that's 6 feet. There's no room to plant trees, screening trees, anything like that. So what we're looking to do and what we're proposing to do is pull that parking or drive aisles to be 40 feet back and provide that significant landscape buffer to the north. So with this buffer, we're proposing a double row of evergreen trees extending all the way down to Haggerty. These trees will be 7 to 8 feet at time of planting, so there's going to be a substantial visual buffer between our use and the residents to the north. And then we've also, for a little autumn color, have added in a 3rd row of deciduous trees a little bit closer to our site, just to vary some species, add a little diversity and some color during the fall. With that being said, I want to... The evergreen trees in the back are going to be 8 to 7 feet. At time of planting, I want to be clear, and then obviously they'll grow up from there. With that, I want to turn it over to Mr. Eric Myers to touch on the building itself. Thank you.
Before Eric comes up, I just wanted to know, 2 weeks ago, we did hold a community meeting. We had sent out notices for that to the residents on Orange Lawn and Pine Tree. and we had met with one young family that was out there. And the one thing that they had discussed about was shielding of the light of cars coming in and out of the property. And that was one of the big things about not only closing the vacuums in the tunnel, but also enclosing the queue lane coming into the express wash itself. So that's one major significant change that was made out of that meeting. But now I'll turn it over to Eric, who can talk about the project as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, so for this building, we're looking at a structure roughly 220 by 180 feet with a 150-foot wash tunnel. The two primary features that we try to put on every alcohol wash are the two towers at the entrance and the exit of the building, which is 38 feet high. And then we have expanded this building to completely enclose the vacuum spaces. Mainly that is as a result of trying to reduce the sound, as well as reduce some of the visual appearances. Like Gabe said, at the neighborhood meeting, we had a few comments on the back pay station stacking lanes. As a result, we looked into that and expanded the building to completely enclose that to reduce anyone having a look at any pay stations, lineup of calls, and to reduce the noise from any calls that might be sitting there waiting their turn in line. From a material standpoint, we've opted to use a lot of durable materials, a lot of brick, metal panels, some split face CMU or concrete block at the base of the building. And then along the enclosed vac portion of the building, we have a lot of a curtain wall storefront window on this building. We wanted to make sure this didn't look like a warehouse that's just completely enclosed. You go by, you don't have any idea what this building is. You're able to look at this and instantly recognize what it's used for and how it can be a help to the community. As far as any mechanical equipment, everything used for the car wash is located within the building. Any mechanical equipment such as rooftop units, we have a parapet along the building, so that would not be able to be viewed from the street or anywhere. As far as like storm drainage, everything's going to be captured internally. We're not going to be running this off onto the existing concrete around the building. And we also opted to try to minimize too much vibrancy in colors. We do have the accent banding that aligns with the alcohol corporate colors that you see going around the building. But for the most part, this building is white with a lot of light grays or dark grays. And I'll hand it off back to Gabe.
And just again reiterating, just with respects to the conditional rezoning and offering conditions to it, we'd be happy to offer all these conditions related to noise, landscaping, lighting, whatever may have been missed into the record, and put our money where our mouth is. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity. We're here to answer any of your questions, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you. We'll be opening the public hearing in just a few moments. So you can sit down and then we'll call you back up. So with that, we will open the public hearing at 7:08, and I'll turn to our Vice Chair and Acting Secretary to address the letters.
Okay. We received 60 unique emails regarding this project from the public. I'm going to summarize the chief concerns that were voiced in the emails. The biggest, probably single one, was characterized as existing traffic and congestion along Ann Arbor Road and Haggerty Road. The second most frequent comment was already multiple car washes in the immediate area. And then some of the other comments that came through, mostly in more than one letter: lighting or concerns about light pollution, longer commute times, difficulty getting out of the subdivision to the north of the subject site because of traffic on Haggerty and Ann Arbor Road, too much commercial development in the township, noise, excessive noise, including noise from vacuums, music playing from vehicles, etc., excess garbage generated, depreciation of home values, already multiple car washes in the immediate area, as I mentioned, hours of operation, do not want noise on evenings or Sundays, is not supported by the master plan, the 2015 master plan. Visual impact, the building design is not attractive, nor displays a high-quality image of the township. Concern over chemicals used in the process and their impact on the local water system. Additional impervious surface and runoff, not a major job creator. Someone said they're concerned that the water use would raise all of our water rates. There were no comments, Laura, in favor of the development. Is that correct from the communications? Okay. And then there was one comment who said he did not appreciate the handbill from an unnamed group being left on their front lawn. There was also a number of comments regarding the claim in this flyer that the Board of Trustees had previously discussed a halt to new car washes on Ann Arbor Road. I would also comment that of the 60 replies, quite a fair number of them did not include addresses, but the ones that did include addresses, there were, as you would expect, feedback from the neighbors immediately to the north, but there were also feedback from other addresses literally all the way through the township into the far western portions of Plymouth Township. So the feedback my takeaway is a broader feedback across the township as opposed to just in the immediate area. Now, I want to name for the record all of the people who wrote the comments, and Chair, these comments will be addressed or attached to the meeting notice. Is that correct?
Yes, each individual letter will be attached to the minutes, and they'll be made part of those minutes, and so that is considered the public record.
So this is the list of people who submitted comments. Mary McNamara, Candace McGillivray, Peter Moros, Ellie Caswell and their family, Marcel and Deborah Madonna, Robert Bashawati, Dan Boyle, Gail Mancini, Jeff and Mary Jane Garcia, Wayne and Christy Holliday, Wayne Krogmeyer, Austin Carpenter, Louis Cottrell, Kathy and Douglas Skipsky, Mike Scapone and their family, Barbara Lanzon, Blaze Flack, Sharon Zimney, Bill Cox, Callahan O'Donnell, Benjamin Meinhardt, Joel Maltese, Ann O'Hare, Todd Williams, Maria Engel, Eric Hedrick, Chuck and Carol Shepard, Shannon E. Blue, Judy McGill, Matt Bosch, Deborah Walker, Mr. and Mrs. William O'Mara, Paul and Tony Lichtig, Mahmoud Jawad, Kathleen Sparks, Ed Ferris, Amanda Habush, Sarah Maltese, Mark and Kathy Lamera, Mark and Ann Riley, Courtney Duffy, Roman Przanowski, Frank Monahan, Philip and Kim Haddad, Matthew Robinson, Al Carpernelli, Ryan Haddad, Joshua Shees, Lois and Tony Jones, Hunter Nielsen, Jim and Corrine Ward, Baltasar Capote, and Marie Louise Capote, Laura Lee Hill, Rick Sikora, John P. Connor, Chase Hutchinson, Sherry Mueller, Nick Schultz, and Sarah Henkel. And I would only comment that when these people wrote these comments, they didn't probably have the benefit of the latest updates that were presented here tonight.
Thank you. So we'll open the public hearing. You're limited to 3 minutes. I ask you to follow what I call the 4 C's, to be clear, concise, cogent, and most importantly, civil. And we welcome you here. It's always good to see a group of our residents come in and be a part of this combination of education and decision-making to help us make the right decision for the township. So with that, you can just wait in line or whatever you want to do. You'll be recognized, come up, state your name and address if you wish. So we'll start off, whoever wants to go first. Okay. No, Matt, sir, we're anxious to hear your comments. If you want to just step there, if you can, next to this
He can go
gentleman.
before me, that's
Okay,
fine.
you can go first, because,
Yeah.
okay, thank you so much.
Step up over there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll finish.
You can sign your name in,
Okay,
write your name down.
okay. Okay, I got a question. I seen on a poster over here about the noise.
Talk into the microphone.
What?
You have to talk into the microphone.
Oh, over here, yeah, I got a question on the noise over here.
Yeah.
I seen on the chart, it said something
Sir.
about loud music.
No.
What was all that about? I'd ask some people on that car wash. What was that says on the poster about the loud music? The noise is about like the loud music. What's that all about?
That's where the kids coming in their vehicles and playing the music loud and the boom, boom, boom.
Oh, that's where the automobiles coming in, having a car wash?
The one down there at the super center, that's exactly what happens when they're there acting the vehicles and pulling in. It's loud.
That has got to do with the automobiles.
All
That's with the automobiles. Okay, so now not only that, but what about the dryers? I understand the dryers make a lot of noise. Is that 24 hours a day, or is that just during the car wash?
Sir, we're going to accumulate all these questions, and we'll ask the applicant those questions. So that's a good point. I'm glad you raised it up, and we'll ask that for them once we hear from everyone. Are there other concerns you have?
Well, that and the commotion it's going to cause with all the traffic, foot traffic, and I use that Ann Arbor corridor quite a bit. I walk through there with businesses and all that, and I sure would hate to be stumbling upon a car, get involved in a car, hit and run, or someone run me over while I'm walking on the sidewalk, public sidewalk there.
So you walk.
The safety, I'm concerned about the safety.
So you walk on the public sidewalk in front of this parcel of property as well as Burger King and the vet hospital?
No, I like it just the way it is.
Oh, okay.
I don't like the commotion with all the cars coming back and forth.
Okay. Any other concerns you have?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, thanks for coming in.
Okay, I got my letter. I was supposed to write a letter. Who do I give this letter?
You can give it to that lady right there.
Oh, okay.
She
Here,
will
I'm gonna
take
give
it
you my
and we'll
letter.
make it part of our record, okay? Is your name on it?
What?
Is your name on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Here's your letter.
Okay. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
All set.
Okay.
Hi, I'm a neighbor on Pine Tree, and I didn't get any previous notification until I received one from the city. And I thought it'd be best to come in so I can address everyone and the board here, not just writing something or sending an email. Okay, so there are several problems with this, and the noise, especially with the vehicles. We know how young kids are. Loud. Their vehicles are loud, their music is loud, and they're not gonna stop. You can do whatever you want and put it inside. Now, what do you do if the HVAC doesn't work so well? All the doors are open, and actually the doors are continuously opening and closing as vehicles enter the facilities, enter and exit. So those 60 megahertz you're talking about is going to be much louder. What do we do about our pets? Our pets can hear much more than we can. I think it's all the way up and past 60 megahertz. So what do we do about them that are in our backyards? That's horrible. What do we do about the animal hospitals? They're trying to rescue pets when they're on their last legs and they're dying. Actually, one of mine died there the other year. They're not going to be able to hear me because all they hear is things from right next door. That's horrible. That is absolutely horrible. And then I think you had mentioned that if they get this with the rezoning, they could decide, well, we don't want to put a car wash. We're going to sell it to someone else. They can develop it. Now it's rezoned to some automotive related. Well, let's put a stamping plan in there for automotive related parts.
Yeah, that
That's
won't
stretching it. That is,
That's
but it's
stretching
not, it's stretching it, but it's not impossible because it's already been rezoned much closer to that than what the intended use, which has been for office. And then you brought up fitness. It hasn't been a fitness facility in a long time. There won't be another one because you have a brand new one, LA Fitness, right here. So the foot traffic, you're talking about fitness, is never going to be in that facility because it's already there. Plus, you also have in downtown Plymouth the Planet Fitness. So you don't have to they're misleading you. I won't say they're lying, but they're misleading you to think that, oh, there's not going to be that much more traffic. There will be. Also, most car washes, if this one, I don't know if it's 24 hours or not, but most of them are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I can't sit out on my deck. I have a pool. I can't use it because I can't hear it, and I'm hearing all this traffic and so on. And you talk about these trees, 7 feet. That ain't much.
Okay.
That's not much at all. That's not going to be much of a sound barrier at all. Even if you put trees, you can't put trees enough because if they get too close to power lines,
I think you've
DTE just comes and cuts them down.
Okay, yeah, I think the timer isn't up, but I think you are up to 3 minutes. But let me ask you this, I have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
Typically don't do this, but where do you live in
On
relation?
Pine Tree.
On what street?
Pine Tree.
Pine Tree?
Right. I'm right on the other side.
On the other side? Okay, so let me ask you this question. It's interesting. The points you raised are something that need to be considered. But what would you do? What kind of development would you like to see there? Because right now, we just have an empty building that probably will continue to deteriorate. So help us make a decision as to what would you like to see there?
I would prefer office because that's what is also to the east of that are office buildings.
Okay.
In office buildings, people come, they work, they leave. Even if it's I think there's a dentist office there. They come in for their hour appointment and they leave. It's not they're bringing 200 people in every single hour. They're not.
Okay.
So much different.
All right. Thanks
So-
very much.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? I'll have to set the timer.
Yeah.
This timer. No, I have it. I thought he had it up there, but he didn't.
I don't mind.
Hi, I've been a homeowner in the township for 11 years. My home is on the corner of Wolf River and Winesap, just
I'm
north.
sorry, where did you say it is?
Wolf River
Wolf River.
and Winesap,
Okay.
just north of the new Quick Pass car wash. And I can smell that from my backyard. Yeah. Yeah, right there. I'm the kind of the southmost house on the east side, yeah. Yeah, that wafts all the way over to my backyard. Another point is if you draw a 2.2 mile radius around my home, there are 4 car washes. 4. Do you know how many places I can go buy fresh food or groceries in that radius? 0. Okay. Now, El Car Wash was bought by a private equity firm in 2022. I believe that's still the case. So this is outside investors coming to our community to take advantage of our traffic to turn a quick profit. That's great for them. An automatic car wash will not provide job opportunities for your young kids. It's not going to serve our community with all the other car washes in the area. It's going to reduce space for something that we need. I don't know if you're familiar with Ann Arbor, like an Argus Farm Stop, or like a Coleman Farms, or a independent fresh food place. That might be a better use for this. I'm a former client actually of AFS, the gym facility, and personally I was crushed when that place shut down. It was owned by a young person who lived in the community, and now we're gonna let that space go to a private equity firm. Is that what you wanna see for our township? And it's a large space that I was really excited to see it used and developed for something new. But not a car wash, please. I urge you, as our leaders, don't let this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Mark Pierce, and I'm listening to them saying that there's going to be the traffic won't affect, this car wash will not affect the traffic in this area. The traffic on Ann Arbor Road in Haggerty is horrendous. It gets worse and worse. I've only been in this township 3 years, and it's already gotten worse every year since I've been here. These traffic studies, I'd like to know if they were done at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon when Ann Arbor Road is backed up all the way to 275. It's horrendous. You're getting off of the freeway. It takes you 10 minutes sometimes to get to Haggerty, just getting off the freeway. I know it's going to impact us. By them saying it's not, I'm sorry, I totally disagree.
Okay, well, we'll address that concern.
All right, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
My name is Travis Saunders, and I live at 40598 Furwood. Grew up here in 1965 when my parents bought the house. Before 275 existed, Bill Knapp's was here. Before these buildings, Firehouse, anything existed. Kmart come and went with me. I've seen change. Don't need any more impact on my life. I now have acquired my parents' house, am fully invested and ingrained to the community. I own motorcycles. I am in fear for my life with the level of traffic that's here now. To add additional carousel of rotating cars that just constantly come through and are supposedly, what I heard, dump out onto Haggerty here, that's not going to work. Again, agreeing with the traffic study, I would like to see, I didn't hear the estimated volume per day of how many cars would be going through the car wash. I did not hear the hours of operation that might be stated somewhere. All those things are very highly impacted. I can see Henry Ford's red sign from my bedroom, and there isn't any tree big enough that's going to stop the sound, because I hear every maniac that comes off a 275 off-ramp that races and gets hit by that new light and has to stop and re-accelerate to get hit by Haggerty. Then do it again. So all these cars with aftermarket exhaust systems, I know that's not the topic, but they're forced to stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. Why is Steak and Ale and Bennigan's property not an attractive place to have this at? It makes sense. Every car wash that I know backs up to an industrial area. The one on USA to Go backs up to the school. An industrial left and right of it. Main Street, residential. You're in and out of that place in 30 seconds. Low impact. Hardly anyone uses the outside vacuums. The one on Haggerty is also industrial. There's no one around that impacts it. I know every neighbor that along that fence that backs up to that property. And when I go over there to have a talk with them about kids' life and where we're going to be retiring to, the noise is just unbearable. You would need professional movie theater, sound deadening, sound absorption board, 12 foot tall, to keep any sounds out from keeping, from going over that wall. So in summary, I'm trying to say there's a better solution. You asked the last person up here what would be a good thing to put there? Something that has a low impact on traffic. I walk and I ride my bike on the sidewalk there every day. And if you had an office facility or something of low impact, employees show up in the morning, 8 to 5. Minimal footprint, small impact. They leave, no sound, no additional lights, and that just keeps that tidy, nice and tight, nice and clean, low impact on the community. So that's my thoughts.
Okay.
And thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for coming.
Good evening. My name is Jack Knowles, 29592 Beck Road, Wixom, 48393. All cards on the table. I represent USA To Go Quick Stores, which owns the gas station and car wash on Ann Arbor Road between Main and Lilly. Does anyone, can I ask a clarification of the planner? Understand that we're in for conditional rezoning. However, in the applicant's materials that they provided as part of their application, under the considerations offered for rezoning, they have a condition of constructing an auto wash on the property that includes unified drive and so forth. Are you saying that even though they put that in there as a condition, that they still have to get the special land use should this rezoning be successful?
The township attorney and I have discussed this, and a car wash facility is a special land use in the ARC district, so that step would need to be, that would need to go through the process as well.
So what they say here, that's off the board.
They're acknowledging that it is a special land use in the ARC district, that doesn't change, and that they're stating that they can meet the use standards that are in Article 14.
So that condition is off the table on their application. I mean, this is one of the materials they submitted. It's on there. So if that's off, what else might be off of the conditions that they've included as part of their application? It's a question. Anybody have a copy of the master plan here? Well, if you did, I throw it on the floor, because that's what you're doing with this application. This flies in the way of every planning document this township has spent hours and hours and hours putting together. And it opens up the door, if successful, for any ARC use that's permitted under the ordinance on that property, with the exception of the ones that they have noted as prohibited. A car wash is one of the most intensive land uses permitted under your ordinance. It conflicts with the existing ordinance, with the existing zoning ordinance, which is why they want the rezoning. It also conflicts with the master plan. Your future land use map indicates this area as Ann Arbor Road corridor office, not retail uses. When you go to your sub-area plan, under impact on single-family residential, it's noted, it's essential that infill and redevelopment sites within the commercial development area are designed to be compatible with adjacent residential areas. When you go to goals and strategies, continue to use the multiple family and office land uses as a transition between existing or proposed single-family residential developments and more intense land uses. Ensure that non-residential buildings and infill development located near single-family residential developments are designed to have a residential character.
Excuse me,
Yes.
we've gone past the 3 minutes, so if you could wrap it up.
I will.
Okay.
I will. And finally, what's been noted as a consent judgment, it's a misnomer. It's not a consent judgment, it's a court judgment.
Yeah, we're not even going to touch that.
And I understand that, but what you have to understand is that document is what says that land can be used for
We're not
right now.
going there,
And I
sir.
know it's not,
Okay,
you think
so
it's not under your
We're
purview.
not going with that discussion.
I understand that.
Because- Okay,
But
well, if you understand it, let's not talk about it.
Let me ask the question. If it's as easy as the applicant has noted in their materials that they've submitted to you, why hasn't that happened in the last 14 months while you've been waiting for this application to come in? Why hasn't that been taken care of?
I can't answer that
I
question.
know you can't, but
Okay,
the
well, then
applicant
don't
maybe
ask it.
can.
Then
And-
don't
and-
ask me.
And one thing,
Okay,
it's
sir,
not
you've
as
had-
easy
you've
as.
had enough.
That's right.
Because
It's not
you're
as
starting
easy
to
as
get
they think.
argumentative,
And there's an
and that's not what we
existing
want
living
here.
signer to that document that's been represented by council and has
We are
notified the
done,
township.
sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that is not a good attitude. Remember, I said we have to be civil. Anyone else? No one else? We're all done? No. Okay, good.
No, we're not done. My name is Sandy Groth. I live at 11135 Butternut Avenue. I did not receive any notification about this. However, it will certainly impact me as well as everyone else who lives in my area. The thing I note is that the basic intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance is to provide regulations and restrictions on the uses of land and structures to promote and protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. I have no problem with your presentation. I have no problem with your idea. Very well done. However, I don't need a traffic study, as recommended by Spalding DeDecker, to know that the traffic on Ann Arbor Road in Haggerty is horrendous, and I can barely get out of my subdivision. Not to mention what's going to happen on Ann Arbor Trail because of that development. I know there's a consent thing. I'm not going to talk about that, but I want to say that I am a newly elected Plymouth Township trustee. During the campaign, the thing that I heard more than anything is that the residents on the east side of Plymouth Township do not feel heard. And I can give you a lot of examples of why they don't, and I'm talking about developments, but the traffic we have today does not compare to the traffic we're going to have when the former Elks project is completed in its development. And we already have major problems. So I'm concerned about the fire department being located to all of this close traffic. So I'm asking, as a resident, if the planning commission will change the course. Don't just listen to what we're saying, but hear what we're saying and respond to us, the citizens who live here. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Ann, and I live on Terry, right between Orange Lawn and Pine Tree. And I hear everything. I see everything. And yes, Henry Ford sticks out when I look out my front window every day. I am concerned that the quality of life that I moved into 22 and a half years ago has gone downhill in Plymouth Township. Why bring up a dead fitness center? It's dead. It's forgotten. Nobody's going to talk about it. It's not going to open again, but we keep bringing it up. Stupid. So you're going to dump out on Haggerty from that car wash. Dumping out on Haggerty is my way home. I work at Sheldon and Ann Arbor Road. I turn left onto Haggerty to get into my subdivision off of Orange Lawn. Traffic's there. And what's going to happen? You're going to traffic right behind Burger King coming out constantly when I'm trying to turn left? That's not a good idea. Pedestrian hazard. I walk up and around that area. I have a dog. My dog won't go up that way because it's too noisy. And now you're going to put some fumes and car wash up there? My husband has lung cancer. He's fighting for his life. We're going to put a car wash with more fumes that the other side of 275 has. My subdivision is a huge cut through. People cut through all the time. So you mean to say that if this car wash goes through and the traffic is backed up, I'm going to get more traffic on Terry Street, and I have called multiple times about that. We have people flying through my subdivision. We have semis flying through my subdivision. Can't ride our motorcycles because I take my life in my own hands because out here, you can't get out. And the new condos, of course, is going to add to the traffic, but Detroit has city gardens, and it's tranquil, and people like it, and they go there, and they grow things. Why can't that be part of that? Instead of some car wash that we have right on the other side of the freeway. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, distinguished members of the Planning Commission, Ian L., and all the citizens here. My name is Julie Yellick. I'm a resident of Plymouth Township. Now, my home is not directly affected by this car wash. I live in Mayflower subdivision, so I'm across from the high schools. But I'm here to urge you to deny this request. While I understand the desire to see vacant property developed, I strongly believe this proposal, a large automated car wash, is not the right fit for this location. And I had bullet points, here's why everybody said it. I am here to support our way of life in Plymouth Township. We don't need another car wash like a lot of people have said. What we need to do is we need to be actually who we are, and I'm going off script. We are people who are concerned about our neighbors. We're concerned about our children. We moved to Plymouth, all of us moved to Plymouth for a beautiful way of life. Okay, this car wash isn't gonna do that for us. We said it doesn't align with the master plan and the noise and the congestion and everything else, but the biggest problem with this plan is the quality of life of nearby residents will decline. And as a resident of Plymouth Township and as a person, that's intolerable. I'm sorry. I want you to be able to walk your dog. I have a dog. I love dogs. And I know how they go crazy when you go down and there's traffic and you got to have a special harness. You got to call your trainer up on the telephone. I want you to swim in your pool. I want you to talk to your neighbors. That's who we are. That's who this planning commission is. Nothing against businesses and growth and everything else. But when it comes between the residents of my community and new business, I'm on the residents' side every day. So just think about it.
Okay, thank you. Else there.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anna Molnaric, the owner of Veterinary Emergency Service 40850 Ann Arbor Road, adjacent to the proposed car wash. My primary concern is traffic. I mean, we sit facing Ann Arbor Road, and we've been there since 2001, 24 years. I will tell you that traffic backs up in that left-hand turn lane all the way back to that blue light that's there, and I know that's supposed to get people into this thing, but making a left-hand turn off of Ann Arbor Road into those businesses is nearly impossible. And I know they've proposed using the Haggerty entrance that's behind our building. We own that driveway and that easement access. No one from their group has contacted us about use of that road. They have instead chosen to cite an agreement from 44 years ago, 1981, between Vic Tanny and Michigan Bank at that point in time. That agreement states that Vic Tanny did have access to that site but that was with the understanding that Vic Tanny was going to maintain that easement and do all repairs. This is something that's just come to me when we noted that they had cited it, and so we pulled it up to see what it said. In the 24 years that we have been there, no one that has been or owned that property has done any type of repair or replacement to that easement. It's something that we've taken care of ourselves. No one from their group has contacted us about use of that easement. They've just chosen to use a 44-year-old agreement. And so I do have a problem with that. I will tell you, I can't, a drive-through business, the amount of traffic that it's going to bring in, there's no way that it's going to be coming in off of Ann Arbor Road. It's going to have to use that easement, and they don't currently have permission to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Miss, are you in the, I missed where you're from. Are you in the veterinary building?
Veterinary Emergency Service, we own that easement.
Okay.
That's part of our property. They have just the small strip of land that is along that back wall. That's the only thing that they own. We also own the property that the signage is on, that the previous owners put up without telling us that they were going to put a sign on our property. I'm not sure how that got past Plymouth.
What sign are you referring to? I'm not clear.
The sign that's right on Haggerty here, that was for the fitness.
Yes, yeah. Oh,
for
that
the
sign, that's
physical therapy
freestanding
group.
sign?
Yeah,
Okay.
they built that sign, started building that sign on our property. I drove up there one day and there's somebody building a sign on our property. So you guys don't own that sign either. That's ours.
What, did you try to
What
contact
we
the
did
building
is we came to an
department?
agreement with them since they already had it mostly built by the time we discovered what they were doing, was to share the signage with them.
Well, that sign, I remember it clearly because there was some concerns about the sign and the impact that it would have on the homeowner that, you know.
The one on Haggerty?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that sign, you know, they started the sign and it stayed kind of fallow for a long time. They had
Right,
like the
because
foundations.
we contacted them and said, you're putting a sign on our property.
And then they finished the sign?
Then they finished it because we came to an agreement to share the sign with them.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, last, did you have something that? Yes, I wanted to add something. Oh, okay, come on up. Normally we don't do that, but you've been standing there patiently, so you must have something really important.
When the previous woman was talking about the traffic on Ann Arbor Road, I live on Burger Drive. So people that are going west on Haggerty, if they actually going east on Haggerty, they see that light backed up at Ann Arbor Trail, they zip down our side street, they speed down our side street, they go up Michael Road to skirt that light. They do that both directions. And our street becomes a racetrack for traffic because of it backing up. This car wash is only going to make that 10 times worse than it already is. I meant to add that, and I completely forgot about it.
And what,
Pardon? Mark Pierce.
excuse me, sir, what was your street that?
Burger Drive.
Burger Drive, okay, thank you.
Because if they're going west on Haggerty or west on Ann Arbor Trail or east and they see the light, then they skirt down and they zip down and go around the other way. And it's the same way we're going north. They see the light, they go down Michael, then skirt down Burger to bypass that light. And the traffic is horrendous on there.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Well, you spoke, well, just one more. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken? Okay.
Hello, I'm Joe Maltese. Full disclosure, I own Main Street Auto Wash in the city of Plymouth, so I'm not a current township resident, but I do know the lay of the land pretty well, and I've been a part of the community for a long time, and Main Street's been here for almost 60 years now. And I can tell you, these guys are kind of grasping at straws here. They're proposing a fully enclosed car wash that has never been done in Michigan. To enclose the vacuums as the way that they're saying, there's a reason nobody's done that. It's not a very feasible, architecturally sound system to have all these customers coming into an enclosed building with their cars on. What are we gonna give everybody, carbon monoxide poisoning? Sound's gonna be an issue. The residents, we need to think about are so close to this property, and they preach night and day how they're gonna plant the trees, and they're doing everything they can, but at the end of the day, it's just trying to butter you guys up so we can get this thing, the ball rolling. They are the private equity, out-of-state company, trying to bring 30 car washes to our state, flooding our market that's already pretty flooded with car washes, as we can see from looking at a map. You know, this is just one drop in the hat for them. And it's, you know, concerning that if we do go ahead and change this zoning for this building, we're gonna have to look at the adjacent properties as well. And they possibly are gonna wanna be rezoned as well and open up a can of worms for all these residents. We need to put the residents first and not somebody who isn't a part of our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that hasn't spoken? Okay, we normally don't have a second chance, but I'll take you, and that'll be
I
a,
appreciate it.
okay.
Something else came up, that's why I wanted
All
to
right,
come back
a
up.
new thought. We're always interested in new thoughts.
So Greg again, off of Pine Tree. So I heard about they're utilizing their attorneys, a 44-year-old agreement. Well, Vic Tanny is no longer around. That agreement should have died with them. It's
Yeah,
not,
let's not talk
forever, so
about
that
that.
becomes attorneys fighting this out. And now it's private equity that owns this. Private equity doesn't care about anything but the bottom line and making money. I know this because I'm in business for a very
But this
large
isn't germane-
multinational
It's not germane to
organization.
our discussion.
I understand that,
Okay,
but I
well-
want people to understand a little bit more
Okay.
when these things come up.
Right.
There's
Okay.
more to it.
I think you've done that. Thank you.
So,
All right, thank you so much. All right, no one else? Then we will close the public hearing at 7:51. And if the applicant can come forward. And I think the big elephant in the room right now, for me anyway, before we turn this into more deeper discussion, is this question about the easement and how that impacts your plan.
Thank you for having us back up. I have a copy of the easement right here. The easement runs with the land, and I'm happy to provide it to the board if you'd like to see it right now.
Whose land? The land you own? You
The
feel
land that
you
we
own
own,
it?
correct.
You feel you own it?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, well, why don't you give it to that lady and.
So I'm going to provide a
that's
copy of the easement and a copy of the survey that reflects the easement as well.
Oh, okay, okay. Kevin, is this something you need to look at as well?
Yes.
Okay, this is our attorney, Kevin Bennett.
Same copy. Yep. And just, I believe the landlord of your building's Frank Monahan, if that's correct? Yeah, so Frank Monahan is your landlord, is that accurate?
No, he owns the building with Frank.
Oh, with Frank. So I've reached out to Frank. Yeah. Oh, terrific. So I've reached out to Frank numerous times. I've known Frank when he used to develop Starbucks. So I'm happy to give you guys, if you guys want to reach out to me, I'm happy to have a conversation and talk through it. So, but I've reached out to Frank numerous times. He didn't return my phone call.
Yeah, Frank's not happy about it, so.
I'd like to answer a lot of the important questions that were brought up, if that's okay.
Yeah, I have a list too, but you
Oh, no,
lead,
so-
no, you lead it off, and
Okay, I'm
and I
sorry
can
about
check it
that.
off. Go ahead.
Okay. You know, the first comment that was brought up was about outside investors and private equity. In 2022, the company was purchased. The company was purchased by two groups. One was Warburg Pincus, who was private equity, and myself. So I'm an owner and investor in the company. So you're looking at the owner of the company, at the business as well. So this is not some outside group that has no recognition of Plymouth or of anything that goes on here. I'm a partner in the business. I live in Metro Detroit. I've lived in Metro Detroit my entire life. I'm part of the community, and it's very, very important to me. So that's just one thing I really, really wanted to, talk about as well. I wanted to talk about as well about, why are we talking about the fitness center? That's what the current building is on the property. If we're unable to do this project, that would be one of our alternatives, is to reopen it up as a fitness center. It's not what we want to do, but that is one of the alternatives. That's what currently is on the property. In addition, there was a lot of discussion about office space. Unfortunately, the office world is not what it used to be. Outside of being a partner in L Car Wash, I own 1 million square feet of office space. in the Metro Detroit market. It's a bloodbath. Unfortunately, people are working from home. They don't come to the office anymore. It's not an economically viable business anymore. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality of it. So to build a new office building on this property would be a difficult thing to do. It's just a reality that I just really, really want to point out. I do want to talk about the loud music. I want to talk about the hours of operation, and then also talk about the smell, odor, and fumes. So if Eric, if you can, talk about a few, Eric Harrison, if you can talk about a few of those things, that'd be great.
Sure. I also am part owner, just to make that clear. Hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. It is not 24 hours, so it is 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Is that every day of the week, or?
It is every day of the week, yes, sir.
Can I,
Please.
how long do your lights stay on?
We have complete control of them. So usually as a safety thing, it's until all of us go home. So usually
you leave
it's
your signage on all night?
the signage, it really varies. As far as in the back, those shut off just because it makes sense. Usually it's on an hour, so we can all clean up, get things disposed, and have people still on the property when it's light. Usually also in the morning, they turn on half hour, 45 minutes, somewhere in that period of time before, again, just we can get opened up, make sure everything's clean, that type of thing.
Sir, let me interrupt you for just a second.
Yes, sir.
The letter that was sent by your representative on middle of February said that the hours would be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
9 p.m., okay. Right now, we're 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
But which
So-
is it? Because that's important to
8
them.
p.m.
So will you update the conditional
Yes.
rezoning would have to be updated to reflect that, is that correct? Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry for interrupting.
The one thing is the smell. Having operated, again, washes majority of my life. If you're reclaimed with just the water you're recycling, if it's not done correctly, it will have an odor. I have not found that to be the case in the whole time last 2 years I've been with El Car Wash, with the newer equipment, with the recirculating of water. So for us, I'm not experiencing that. Haven't experienced it so far in Brighton, haven't experienced it so far in Madison Heights. Something we'll definitely be cognizant of, pay attention to, but that's not, I wouldn't like that. That would not be how we would prefer to operate or would operate that way.
Eric, can you just address the noise question? There was a talk about, cars with loud noises and music blaring and everything. How do we operate our location so that doesn't take place?
Well, first, here in Michigan, we don't play music outside. I'm with you. I don't prefer it. I don't like it. I have 4 kids, teenagers with cars. Again, the nice thing about this is it's inside. So yes, you're going to have the noise inside. It's not going to be like some of the other car washes that have some of the music outside. So I totally respect and understand that. The same thing too is if you follow the doors for the vacuums, it kind of circles around. So again, it's kind of containing the music. Someone also brought up, why don't they do indoor vacs? They do all over the country. It is done all over the country. I was in a different state this last weekend just getting an idea so I can have an understanding. What looks good? What makes it feel right? What makes it an El Car Wash, I guess, is the way I would say it. So just another point is that is done. There's a lot of large companies that do it. So it is feasible. It's not something that's difficult, but it is something that, I don't know, to me in the middle of winter would be fantastic to be inside vacuuming my car, taking care of my car.
Okay, I have a question. I don't know if
Sure.
which two of you could
I can try.
best address this, since we were talking about smells. And it's all enclosed. How do you handle the exhaust? And how often do those doors go up and down?
So there's a couple, without getting too technical, let me explain. We'll take that on a couple different answers. First, you have the regular wash, okay? The entrance to the wash, which faces the the houses, that's going to be open all day. And when we do the measurements for the sound, that is with that door open. That is not with that door closed. That is with that door open. Why is that door open? Again, it's more appealing as you're driving up as opposed to some places where that door is closed. I personally just don't prefer it, so that door is open. As you see the little cutout that's back there, cars coming through, that door that goes into where you're washing your car, not into where the vacs are, that door is open and will be open. Someone also brought up, hey, the blowers that are drying the car. Great question. It's the loudest part of the whole car wash. That is on the furthest end. Again, when we're checking the sound, it is with all equipment on. Absolutely everything full bore. It's loud as it can possibly be. So again, with the decibels that we gave you before, that is with those on, that is with the door open, that is without the trees, just to make that very clear. As far as handling the exhaust, I'd have to rely on people that are smarter than me to understand that. People that are doing HVAC, those type of things, pulling out the air. Having owned and operated an oil change also as part of my life, I get it. That's something that can be handled, but I'm the wrong person to answer that. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, appreciate your honesty on
Yes,
that.
again, we surround ourselves with people that do that.
Okay. All right. Next item on your agenda?
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
Yes.
I got the drawing here, right? I want to make sure people in the audience see this, okay? What you just said is the vehicles enter from the back, they come out the front by Ann Arbor Road. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And the largest source of noise are the dryers that are up by this tower in
That
the
is
very
correct.
front of the building by Ann Arbor Road.
That is correct.
Okay, and your noise measurements did not exceed 60 decibels?
Can I walk over to
Yeah,
you?
sure. Yeah, I'm holding
For-
this up for the benefit of the
Yeah.
audience, not for my own, because I memorized what's on
Yeah.
there, okay?
For me, what we've got is we have the entrance to the wash
Yep.
with the door open.
Okay.
Then we'll take measurements every 10 foot back, trying to figure out where am I getting this. 60 is a great number. I mean, us talking right here is louder than 60. So for me, trying to figure out where that is. So
Okay.
for me, that's,
All right. I appreciate your honesty and the fact you guys took noise measurements. So I went and took my own on Sunday at 4:55 PM, okay? And
Fantastic.
I couldn't take this as a video, I just took a snapshot. Thank you, Sandy. And I actually measured 59. The highest I saw was 60.
okay.
Right, and there's two types of noise. There is structure-borne noise, the kind you feel in your rear end when you have a first-order vibration from out-of-balance tire. And there's airborne, the type you hear from an exhaust system, right? And the legal noise limit is 80 decibels on an A scale, right? So it's non-linear scale, it's log-log, so every 3 decibels is a doubling of sound power. So the noise measurements you guys took, right, this is quiet, okay? It actually matches the noise that a resident hears because I was standing by the retaining wall on the back of the property. So the noise and the traffic driving on Ann Arbor Road actually matches the noise. I didn't mean to kill my battery here, that comes out. So I just wanted to clear the noise up. I'm an engineer, which is a curse
Because I had a hard
and a
time
blessing.
too, every time a car would drive by.
Yeah.
The noise. Yeah.
Yep, okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out one other thing. You spoke about the Henry Ford sign and what it currently looks like, and having to stare at that from your backyards. This right here is what we're proposing for your view to be. And we're not proposing it just behind the car wash property, we're proposing it for all the way down to Haggerty Road. We propose for this to be the entire view. Now, the other thing that we'd be willing to put as something that we're offering as proponent, we spoke to a young couple that had met with us 2 weeks ago. We had offered to replace their brick wall if it was falling apart. We'd still make that same offer. So if anybody's walls are falling apart, we'd replace those as well. But this would be the view, as opposed to what I think as opposed to what the current view is right now of Ann Arbor Road. There was a question of, getting the property rezoned just to go do something else, kind of like a bait and switch, was the concern. We proposed a restriction that this rezoning would only be tied to a car wash.
Is that an exact condition? It will never be anything else.
Yeah, we'd have to come back to this board at a different time.
No, I said they could sell the property, right. And I think it's somewhat similar to this consent judgment that's out there where that was restricting that property to a fitness center. And it has been ever since the original Fig Tannies and the string after that. So again, you can see now that has become an issue, I don't know, 30 or 40 years later. Something that we cannot or should not be involved in. That's more for the Board of Trustees and the courts.
Outside of that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll turn it over to well, Kevin, did you have an opportunity to look? Do you have any broad-based opinion on what you've looked at?
The things that I noticed was, and correct me if I'm wrong, they are voluntarily imposing 3 additional conditions. One would be, there would be a noise study as a condition to the rezoning. The open hours of this car wash would be 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and that the rezoning would be limited to a car wash. Those would be on top of the voluntary conditions that they've already imposed upon this project. If that is accurate, those need to be put into writing as part of the application.
We're happy to do so, sir.
And where do we stand with the easement?
That's gonna be a separate issue, probably a private property issue.
So we're not going to get involved in that.
Private property owners will likely get involved in that issue, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So open up to the commission. Who wants to start off?
I'd love to start off.
Sure.
I have several questions here, right? This gray section on this drawing is the road that goes behind the Burger King, right? And the veterinary office, right? I was not clear when I looked at it. I know you guys have heated concrete here, you have concrete over there, talked about asphalt and asphalt. Are you proposing to resurface all the way over to Haggerty Road?
Correct, we are.
Okay, that was not clear in what I read. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yep, that is our proposal, and we've.
The second question I have, and I'm not for or against.
Yes, we are. We're good next door neighbors.
Let's
I've contacted Mr. Monahan, but I'll get your information after this meeting, and I'll reach out to you first thing tomorrow morning.
I took a video of this yesterday on the way here to the Board of Trustees meeting. I mean, it's Plymouth Township, and I agree, you have to look out for the residents, right? This parking lot, the building, right, the sewer that's falling in, it looks like a scene out of Beverly Hills Cop, okay? Which was in a very bad area of Detroit. It was Eddie Murphy. It was a movie from 40, 50 years ago, okay? I remember it like it, and this is Plymouth Township today. That facility is an eyesore. And I looked at it as if I was a homeowner, a very good friend who actually backed up right behind the Burger King. They dealt with the smell. So I stood by that wall. I looked at it, and I'm thinking, I think about property values all the time, okay? And I basically want to do what's right for everybody, the township, the community, the property owners. When I looked at the plans and I saw the 102 pine trees that were 7, 8 feet tall, that wall is 5 feet tall. My first question is, man, I'd love them all to be 8 feet so you see nothing but green, right? A. B, that does break up sound pressure waves, okay? And then the other question I had is, the towers are 38 feet tall, right? Where you drive in and you exit. What's the other max dimension of that roof that's flat?
So if you look at the middle portion where the grass is right there, the part right to the right of that is about 25.8. The portion just on either side, I believe, is 20'8".
Okay, some of the drawings are missing in here. We had probably half of them. How tall is the existing building today? Is that taller than or is it shorter than?
I don't know that answer.
That's why I'm asking. I'd like to know that. It's something that I think we need to go pull the old drawing and take a look at it. And the reason I was asking that question is blocking out whatever you see from Henry Ford opposite this facility, right? If it's taller, that may be a plus, right? It blocks the noise of the traffic. It could be a plus, right? Like I said, I'm not for or against. I'm just trying to ask questions here to try to do what absolutely could be the best. When I looked at the proposed fixtures, A to B, right? What the residents don't know is this commission is working on a dark sky, okay, amendment, right? It's something we're working on. We've talked about putting side shields on. Right now, LEDs are directional. They only send light down. Most people don't know that. However, the side shields actually provide a measure so you don't get light leakage laterally into the subdivision, right? When the engineer spoke, right, the VP of product integration, he said they would have it, but this picture here does not show that. So I'm calling and asking for clarifications. I don't see side shields on the LEDs here.
Yeah, so the newer LED models, they actually on the individual LED have little shields behind it. But in that table that specifies the fixture on the top left,
Yeah.
there should be a HSS at the end of each of those IES files, and that would indicate house side shielding.
Okay.
But we're committing to house side shielded lights.
Fine, I just want to capture it in the record, make sure the
Confirmed
paperwork
house
says
side
that,
shielding,
because you
for sure.
did say that earlier in the presentation, but
yes.
the picture didn't reflect it, right? And as you can tell, I pay attention to details very closely. These 3 lights that are on the back, okay, those are closer to the residents' houses, right? And my suggestion is, would you consider moving them 27 feet, so than the island here, so they're further away from the houses and close to the building? It would cost less to dig trenches and run the wire back to the source.
So, to do that, what we wanted to do is have that shield and direct lights into the site. So if we put one there, we could direct it into the site, but you're kind of it's gonna be tough to light that drive aisle. If that's a condition that the residents would want, we can figure it out. My recommendation, doing a lot of these lighting plans, is have those lights face in or southern and shield them. And that's how we get those zeros on that property line, and the residents won't even be able to see the light. So that was our solution to it. We're understanding that, it's a sensitive topic, and so that's how we wanted to achieve that.
It is sensitive, right? People want to sleep, right? They got little kids that live there, and I thought I read that these would be 20 feet tall, right? And lower is better than taller, right? If you're a resident looking over a 5-foot wall, right, knowing that they're shielded and directional.
We'd be happy to drop those
Just-
to 15.
It's something I want you guys to take into consideration.
That's a good point. We should definitely lower those ones in the room.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that that's in the record. Those were my original questions, right? And I do think we have to figure out who owns it, right? But knowing that this is going to be asphalt resurfaced, right? I mean, you can't even drive in there without, you could lose the bottom of your vehicle. That's how bad the parking lot is there. It's dangerous today. So, I'm all for safety, right, of everything. People crossing the street, walking dogs, the noise, and having the inside and having your noise measurements done, it would be novel, okay? And 60 decibels is nowhere near the 80 decibels of legal noise that you have for a vehicle going through noise traffic 25 miles an hour. And the traffic study, we need to know more. I don't know what time of the day, if it was rush hour, right? You did it great, but I think you really need to show us when you did it, how long you did it, how many days you did it for, because these guys know it the most because they're living next to it, right? I don't, right? I've just been there twice in the last 4 days to see what I could see, to come up with the questions after looking at this. Overall, I think the engineering architecture firm actually did a really good job on the site, right? And I'm not sure what the right answer is here, but the office market is glutted. It's everywhere nationwide, and the fact that this still could be a fitness center offers a glimmer of hope. But, this plan in engineering, it's novel. You don't freeze your hands off in the wintertime wiping your car down like I do at Pure Wash, right? You don't slip and fall on the ice like you do from the water that's there, whether it's wishy-washy or Pure Wash. It is novel. And the fact that you've moved this as close to Ann Arbor Road, right, keeps the noise away from the residents, which is actually what you want to do, and you've done it.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
So my friend to the left of me asked a lot of my own questions, so I'm sort of down to a couple. And where is the retention pond / underground pond at? I missed that on the drawing. Can't remember.
So it's, it's in that, I'm having trouble explaining it. So
Here, I got it.
there you go. So just,
You need that? Help me out.
this plan would be here, and it would be here, on the sides. We have preliminary sides. And that's what we're gonna have to work on foundations. but it'll be under the parking lot to answer your question.
Is it me?
So,
Material against. Got a copy of it.
so my question is, and, you know, it's a funny thing around Plymouth is we love water gardens. Have you thought of using any of that green space for water gardens?
The north we wanted to preserve for that screening, but I think we do have some good opportunities on the east side of the property where we could incorporate some sort of rain garden, bioswale, some sort of infiltration practice. I do want to point out we're going to have a water quality unit before it enters the detention system, so we're treating the water.
Right.
But
I think
I'm
it's
not
more for the
objectable.
hard surface areas it's more for the hard surface areas for the rain gardens that
Yes.
A lot of the bigger projects have been using, so.
Yeah, I think that would be a good addition to the east side of the plan. I think we could incorporate some pocket rain gardens.
And then my other question is, and it's going back to the lighting. I think I'd like to see a little bit more definition on it. And basically the banding on the building itself, the banding on the towers, which I'm sure there is, and the signage. Oh, I think it looks like it's just off the front of the building, so that's not as concerning. But I think anything that faces the residents, that needs to be addressed. So that it's, I understand your parking lot lights and that, but I think that anything that they can see over those 7-foot spruces, that it's a problem.
So that'd be like the northern elevation of the building.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
Maybe, and the east and the west, maybe. I
So
don't know.
just neutralize it out.
Yeah.
I got it.
You pointed out the underground retention ponds to you. We couldn't see. Where is it on this right here?
Oh.
Where is it here? Can you tell us this is your building? This is
Over here, possibly in here.
Okay, so it's not going to be along here,
No,
and then
no.
something happens in our backyards.
No.
We're proposing to be rain gardens here on the side right here. Thank you. Couldn't see that.
And just to close the loop on that, the stormwater item, right now, there's very little infrastructure in place. So not only are we going to be adding in new infrastructure in the detention pond, but we're also increasing the green space on the site by roughly double. So that rate that water is getting into the system is going to be further reduced. So overall, from a stormwater standpoint, it's a net positive.
Okay, thank you.
First is, I guess, a question for Laura and also Chairman Cebulski. We did not get a summary of the engineering report tonight that was dated March 10th, but there is one key point on here, the review summary, point number 9 reads, and I don't fully understand this, but I want to read it for the audience and for us to maybe get a better understanding. It says okay, excuse me. ITE doesn't have a huge data sample for automated car washes, but from what we can gather, the Saturday peak hour for this land use will generate a total of 140 trips per hour, that is 70 in and 70 out. Per the MDOT guidance, keep in mind that Ann Arbor Road is governed by MDOT, not Wayne County. Per the MDOT guidance, quote, a traffic impact assessment is required for any proposed development expected to generate between 50 and 99 peak hour directional trips, or at the discretion of the region/TSC traffic and safety engineer. Now, the way I read this is that what this is telling us is that we have to get a traffic impact assessment before we can complete our evaluation of this proposal. Laura, am I interpreting that correctly?
This is a question for the engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can add to that. So we didn't have, enough information, but I communicated this project with our traffic engineer, and he said we didn't have enough data, to determine, but what he could gather for, previous projects or understanding. He understands that at the minimum, a traffic impact assessment will be required, but we will definitely require from the applicant more data or information to make a final determination. But it is an understanding that in the previous project, the one that was submitted years ago, they were gonna submit a traffic study. So I don't know what the plan is for this project. But usually we don't require it until site plan, but it can definitely be required prior if required by the commission.
Thank you for that. I do have a number of other questions, and I apologize if this is a little bit painful for the audience and for you, but I really need a clear understanding of what we're talking about here. So I wanted to ask, where else do you have L car washes with an enclosed vacuum building?
This will be the first one in the state of Michigan and the first one that L Car Wash has. This will be the first
Okay,
location.
so of your 70 locations, right now, you don't have any that have this feature, is that correct?
Correct. So we're planning to do one here in Plymouth. We're submitted in the city of Ferndale for one as well. Allen Park. So we're planning on building all of our L car washes to be fully enclosed for all the reasons, for the most part, all of them fully enclosed in the state of Michigan for the reasons we discussed today. Residential, weather, and all those various factors.
The Ferndale and Allen Park, are any of those scheduled to be completed in the next year?
Allen Park, we're breaking ground there right now on that project. We're developing the, if you know the Allen Park Fairlane project, the old, it's a brownfield project. It's the old, north of the Target on Oakwood and Southfield Expressway.
Okay.
So we're developing that project. It was an old dump site, and we just bought the last 20 acres over there, and we're developing that project right now.
Okay, I guess I'm looking for a completion date so that we could look at it ourselves and draw any conclusions. When would it be completed?
None of the projects will be open in 2025. They'd all be open in 2026, the full
2026,
enclosed ones we're
okay.
discussing.
Okay. One of the residents that wrote in had some pictures of your project on at Madison Heights on 14 Mile Road. Can you summarize, if that person is either here or listening online, how is this proposal different from the one on 14 Mile? Because she was not happy with that appearance.
I think we have pictures of the 14 Mile. I don't know if I have pictures in the presentation. That's a picture from her. I remember seeing the resident's email. I don't know if we can open up our presentation. There's pictures of the Madison Heights location. I wasn't quite certain what the issue was in the letter. If you can remind me again, I apologize. So, I mean, so I think Mitch just whispered over my ear that there was, that a lot of this stuff was visible, the vacuums and everything is going to be fully enclosed. So I'm not sure if the resident had the opportunity to review our package showing that the vacuums being closed, but that'd probably be the biggest difference.
Okay. I want to reiterate, in the letter from Samantha Berger dated 2/17/25, she said the hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Tonight, you're changing that to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And Attorney Bennett, you're telling us that needs to be the proposed conditions from the applicant would need to be updated to reflect that. Is that correct?
Yes, among other things.
Yeah, okay. Another discrepancy between her letter and what you're being showing tonight, the letter from Samantha Berger dated 2/17/25 on page 5 says that there would be a single row of 8-foot evergreens along the back. The blueprints that have been shown tonight and that were given to us a couple weeks ago at your open house show 2 rows, a 7 to 8 foot row of cedar back against the wall, and then in front of that, a row of 7 to 8 feet arborvitaes. That's an important distinction. So again, which is correct?
The plans are in front of you this evening.
Okay, so Attorney Bennett, wouldn't that need to be updated on the letter of conditional rezoning as well?
It could be, not necessarily. I would believe, and I'll defer to the planner on this, that's generally part of the site plan.
I understand, but in this particular case, the key issue is the noise in the site to the homeowners behind. And at least for me personally, that is one of the factors that I would consider in how I look at this.
The problem with conditional zoning is that the conditions have to be unilaterally submitted by the applicant with no
Right, with no
influenced
pressure
by.
from the township, right?
Right,
Okay, so,
exactly.
but I'm trying to, I mean, we're being shown one thing, and the letter is saying something else. So what you're really telling me is we have to rely on the letter, which is one row of 8-foot trees, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would like to take the opportunity that we'll update our letter to reflect 2 rows of trees, to reflect our plans, and you'll see an updated letter from us. Our intent and put our money where our mouth is to do 2 rows of trees. With no undue pressure from anybody, we're happy to offer that up.
Okay, you answered that one. Okay, I did hear, one of my questions was, is the road, the back road to Haggerty to be repaved? And you said it is, yes, that it's proposed
Correct.
asphalt pavement, okay? Okay, talked about the traffic study. Okay, we talked about that. Okay, I'm getting the question is there lighting on the building that would go, either signage or other lighting, that would be toward the east, toward the north, or toward the west? So in other words, is there lighting on the building that the people that live behind would see from the back elevation or the side elevation of your car wash?
What's proposed right now? I don't know.
Right now, you're looking at the east side.
Is there any lighting proposed on the north side?
No.
There's definitely no lighting proposed on the north side, and we're happy to put that as a condition of no lighting on the north side, unless there's security lighting or something of that nature, but there isn't any either. So there'd be no lighting proposed on the north side. And I think there was some conversation about the east and the west, we just spoke about earlier. I don't have an answer on that, because the question of the aesthetics and all that, so is there anything proposed
It's on
on
the
the east and the
drawing.
west?
Yeah. So there's going to be lights on the east side to light up that parking area. There'll be no lights on the north side. There'll be no lights on the west side. And the north side, or the south side closest to Ann Arbor, that should just be lit up with area lights, so like pole-mounted lights.
You told us that the new building is in the tallest corners at 38 feet tall. I believe I read somewhere that the existing building is also 38 feet tall. Can anybody confirm that? But it's apparent to me that the new building would be farther from the existing residence than the old building by a significant amount. Okay, okay, you all had a open house 2 weeks ago Thursday in this room right here. At the time that I came here, between 6:45 and 7, there were only 3 people that had, or 3 people or residencies that had attended. One was Chair Sabolsky, second was a homeowner from the immediate area, and the third was myself. How many did we actually end up with at 8 o'clock? How many other homeowners showed up for that?
It was only the one homeowner that showed up. Stephen, do you have the list of who it was? We had sent out letters to all the residents of both Orange Lawn and Pine Tree.
Oh, I live on Terrace, so you forgot about me.
We're supposed to send it out to 300 feet. We went above and beyond the 300 feet and sent it out. I apologize. I understand. I'm happy to answer any questions today.
I don't think the Haggerty exit is going to be a good exit, because I don't know if you've sat there.
Okay, we're not getting into a discussion like that. Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay. The one comment that you told me from that meeting was that the homeowner had asked about the, what you call the transaction terminals. And on your drawings that you presented to us, they're outside. But you said during the meeting that you were going to move those transaction terminals inside the building. So what is the most current plan?
That's an updated plan from last time me and you were together. This is with all the transactions inside at this point in time.
Okay. So they go inside the building for the transaction, and then they come back out and turn left to go into the car wash?
Correct.
Okay.
But the
So
pay
that would-
stations are all inside at this point.
Yeah, so presumably that would lessen the noise of cars, at least the ones that are waiting in line to pay, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. There were concerns about the water usage. You mentioned that 90% of the water is recycled. And you also mentioned somewhere in your materials that you only use 20 gallons of water per car versus 100 in what you call a typical car wash.
Correct. I'll defer to Mitch and Eric on this one if you guys want to.
Yeah, so we have a reverse osmosis system, oil water separator, and then some settling tanks that allow us for that 90% water reuse. And Eric, if you want to touch on gallons per.
Water's a big deal, obviously. So we do everything we can to maximize the water. Without getting too technical, we
Can
have
you
five.
step a little closer to the
Oh,
mic
sorry.
so we can-
Without getting too technical, we actually have 5 types of water because we want to take everything that we can and reuse it. Obviously, there's some places that are not advantageous to use the recycled water. Towards the end, it's much easier to dry, not spot your car with, at the end, we use some fresh water. So we reuse what we can, but we can't do 100% of it, 100% of it. I think some of the numbers out there when somebody says 100 gallons, there's, whether it's a typical wash, which I'm not going to give you that information because I don't know everyone else's washes. There's a lot of news articles about people washing in their driveway using 100 gallons, that type of thing. I can tell you that part of my job is to utilize the water that we can and in the most efficient way that we can. And we're always looking for ways to improve that only because it's better for the environment, it's better for the wash, it's better for everybody.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, part of this was to answer me, but also wanted the audience to hear.
Yes.
Okay. I have some comments for the planning commission, but that's all I had for the applicant.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I just have one. The only, I think we've talked about all the major concerns. The only one, and it's really not a concern, I'm just more curious. A number of people mentioned, well, we already have a bunch of car washes around there. Why are you not scared of that? Why are you feel that's fine? We can get sufficient number of customers, to make this fly.
I'm going to go from my own experience. I actually was a private owner for 20 years, scared to death of people like this to come into the market, okay? What I found when they came into the market, they actually increased the amount of people washing their cars with big, beautiful buildings, with indoor vacs. Was actually very surprised. So with that, a lot of times when there's something different offered, you're getting somebody different into the market that maybe isn't washing their car or isn't utilizing something for one reason or another. So in my experience, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do find that obviously there's a point where there's not, but with this area, with the amount of traffic and people, we do feel that we, provide a different service and can survive that way.
I was personally, I was never in the car wash business. I went into the car wash business, and I never washed my car, and I wash my car, every week, and my whole family does, and it's just it's actually a service that I've learned to love and enjoy, and we think we provide a premium product is our belief. That's really it.
Okay. How much, I'm just curious too, how much is a monthly wash membership? Or what are you planning on this one being?
So the memberships range anywhere from the mid $20 range up to the mid $45, mid 40 range. So it varies from there based upon deals and discounts and membership and all that.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if this question should be directed to Laura or to Kevin, but do we need to be concerned about this situation that exists between the owner of the easement and these folks here? Is that part of our bailiwick here, or?
Without having considered this in substantial detail off the top of my head, it appears, and I did look at it, appears that it is a private easement, private property easement between the owners of the respective parcels. And it does run with the land.
So how do you believe this could impact your plan?
We believe there's a valid easement. We bought the property. We received title insurance. The title insurance we received was with that easement in place. These title companies do a lot of investigation before they issue a title policy and issue an endorsement. They're taking on a lot of financial risk, and these are big major companies, the First Americans of the world and the Fidelities of the world. So they're taking on big major risks to say you have a valid easement. Respectfully, private property owners can have disagreements, but we feel that it runs with the land. There's a document that's registered that is a legitimate document, and there's a big title company that provided us an endorsement telling us this easement's in fact a good easement, it's a valid easement, it's an easement that you can use. And obviously we're happy to have a conversation with our next door neighbors, and if there's any issues or concerns, we're happy to address it with them. But we have an easement that runs with the land.
And then a question for the commission.
And the only other thing that I would mention is that the easement's been there for 40 some odd years, so if it was an issue, I don't know how it would be brought up today. So for 40 years, this easement's been in place. We've worked on signage together and various other things. So sometimes I'm not sure if people bring up stuff because it's a real concern and they just don't like the project going next door. So I know they're not a proponent of the project, unfortunately. This easement's been in place for over 40 years. So why is it an issue today after 40 years? And I don't think that doesn't take away from the validity of the easement.
So Laura, does this impact what the commission can do, or?
I mean, Kevin Bennett can weigh in on this, but if you look at their site plan, their traffic flow, and maybe this is something the applicant should discuss in greater detail, but it is self-contained within their site with or without that back portion of the property. They have direct access onto Ann Arbor Road, and no secondary access is required in the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So then the other properties can just close off that roadway behind the buildings and say this is ours, no more traffic.
That's not what I'm saying.
But they can do that because they own. No.
Okay. So we could require the traffic study at this point, or done at site plan if we reach to that step?
Yeah, right now for the conditional rezoning, I would not, as a conditional rezoning, the township cannot require anything additional at this point.
All right. So I asked the commission, where do you want to go with this?
I have a question for all of us as the planning commission. Do we feel if we approve this proposal, could it result in similar proposals for other portions of Haggerty, of Ann Arbor Road, between Haggerty and the side street? In other words, if we approve this, is it more likely that we will get other similar proposals that are not compliant with the existing office zoning?
And then sort of coupled with that, if I can add on to your question, and does this meet the goals of the 2015 master plan? How do you believe it meets those goals?
Well, as we discussed in the report, it is a more intensive use and isn't perfectly aligned with the language that's in the 2015 master plan in providing that office transition to residential. However, we acknowledge that the dimensional and massing setback requirements, building height standards for the two districts are the same. So the impact on adjacent properties can be minimalized. Additionally, with the landscaping plan that's been proposed, this goes well above and beyond landscape standards, so that it's kind of a moot point regarding the intensity of the land use. As far as setting a precedent, I would ask the township attorney to weigh in, but I think if the commission in the township is concerned about land uses and what's allowed versus what is not allowed, then the zoning ordinance should be amended. Because right now these are allowable uses, so as long as that remains in your zoning ordinance, it's thinkable that an application could be provided to the township for those uses. So, for instance, in Westland on Ford Road, the city recently eliminated auto uses, so auto repair shops, car washes, etc. So no more can be built along Ford Road. That is one option that municipalities have, is to look at their different districts and what's allowed versus what isn't. But as long as a car wash remains an allowable use, it opens the door for applications within your zoning ordinance, regardless of this application.
A comment to that, Kevin?
And what, as far as setting precedent, generally, real estate is viewed as an individual parcel. Courts have generally held that each zoning case is different and must be analyzed in light of the facts applicable to the particular property in question. Since each parcel is individual in nature, the concern about setting a precedent would not appear to be a major concern, just because of the nature of rezoning.
I appreciate the legal descriptions. I think we also need to look at this from a practical point of view. That stretch of Ann Arbor Road between Haggerty and 275 has fundamentally changed in the last 10 or 20 years. And we need to take a more holistic view of this. And I guess that then leads to my second question to our fellow planning commissioners, as well as Laura. Do we feel comfortable making a recommendation to the Board of Trustees now when the master plan will be updated this year, that's on our work plan, and the Ann Arbor Road north side between Haggerty and Terry Street has already been highlighted as a specific area that we need to address for a possible updated future land use? So in other words, we have to update the master plan this year. We know that section of Haggerty on the north side, the section of Ann Arbor Road on the north side is something that we need to look at again and see what we think the right use of that piece of land is in its entirety. And a future land use is not zoning. It just says, this is what we as the Planning Commission think is the best use for this land looking into the future. It's kind of our ideal state. So again, my question to the Planning Commission is, is it appropriate for us to be making a recommendation to the board when this is a specific part of a specific piece of land that we need to address in our master plan update this year?
I can just
Is
tell
that
you
clear?
from a legal
You're saying,
standpoint.
do we postpone a decision because of that? Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking, is it appropriate for us to be making a decision on this piece of land now, when our master plan is due to be updated this year, and address this area?
I think Kevin was going to address
And what I was going to say is, from a legal standpoint, the most important substantive criteria for rezoning is whether or not the proposed rezoning is consistent with the master plan. So that is a legitimate consideration.
Thank you. Do we, among us here is the Planning Commission, that's the legal interpretation. You've heard my question. What do the rest of us think about that?
Well, we did talk about this informally when we did work on the plan and then kind of got sidetracked on that effort. I'm a little concerned about that area. I mean, we know, I think everybody in the room knows that offices are in deep state, and those are primarily offices on the other side. So it's a strong possibility that with the passage of time, those offices, may not be as viable as they are now. And then we will have different uses for that stretch of parcels. So, it's a consideration we have to think about.
The thing it's sort of wild because I was watching Mayor Duggan's farewell parade, and he brought up one of those topics he talked about was the amount of empty office space in Detroit, and how him and Mary Bauer came to conclusions at the Renaissance was better off tearing down 2 of the towers and giving the Detroit area more space. He brought some interesting facts that there was 2.7 million square feet of office space in Renton that's unused right now. The Tri-City or Tri-County, there's 16 million square feet of vacant space. In the Chicago market, there's 50 million square feet of vacant space. So it's not just a Plymouth issue, it's a national issue, and I think that's something, I know we've talked about it, and I think that, we really, whether it's on this issue or the master plan, I think it's definitely have to take in consideration that we in Plymouth Township have a boatload of office space that eventually is going to be empty.
Yes, and I think we need to consider in discussions dealing with the master plan on that particular stretch, what is an appropriate use? Because I think we all agree traffic is extremely heavy there. And what would be a use that would mitigate some of that traffic? Do you have a comment? You look like you're ready to bust in.
I want to hold off on the do we punt or make a decision question of Tim's first. I really would like to know the issue with the traffic, and the real concern is that people are going to cut through there and go through the access road to Haggerty Road. Is that part of what bothers and is concerning to residents, right? Because you're going to have cars opening doors throughout the day. If this was an office building, you'd have it if it was a fitness center. You'd have it if it's going to be any business, right? You got fewer doors opening and closing outside this building with the way it's set up. Okay, if you want to dry it or wipe your car down or vacuum it, you go inside. Otherwise, you pull back out on Ham Road and take off. And I think we have to address that issue regardless of what we do with the master plan and what we think the future purposes are for every building in that section. The fact of the matter is there are 3-foot chuck holes on that back access road in the parking lot, and that poor older gentleman here, I'm worried about that guy cutting through and falling in the sinkhole that's there and disappearing. It's a safety risk right now, what we have. So I go between what we have, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. I hate to say that, but I'm saying it again here because the proposal is pretty good. The smell, the odor, the noise, the dark sky, those are good. It's the traffic thing, which is the biggest worry bead I have for safety, right? And the residents and the neighborhoods, that if we don't address the traffic, and that's why I'm worried, it's a cut through, and if we don't address that now, right? And I don't know if these gentlemen and ladies that are here presenting, if that traffic was cut off at the back or not, would that change their decision to invest or not? It would save a heck of a lot of asphalt in the backyard, right? And save a lot of money on doing this. And maybe that addresses the traffic issue of the neighbors. We need to know that. And I don't think anyone's considered, because no one's presented an alternative, right? Other than Tim's suggestion, right? So buying more time, I don't think is a bad idea. To learn more and figure out, what we want it to be, number one, and if it was cut off and not driving traffic behind the veterinarian or the Burger King, right? Maybe that helps their businesses too, and the neighbors that back up to that part. I don't know what I don't know, and I'd really like to know more.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if we could know more at this point. I mean, there's a number, certainly this project brings some benefits. I mean, they've given very fine, conditions that they would willing to go through. They've been cooperative. Kudos for, holding an informational meeting with the residents, even though it appeared that wasn't too successful. It was a fine effort. And it shows their concern, I think, for the residents.
Actually, I like to be set up, Bill, from my old Ford days, and you've done a great setup here. My third point that I thought we need to discuss is, can we make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees without a traffic study being completed first? Laura, you're telling us that we don't have to specifically do that.
Correct, because this is a conditional rezoning, so only the applicant can offer. It's not feasible for the Planning Commission to say we recommend approval with a traffic study.
However, I want to come back and I've been doing, between the ZBA and this, about 8 years, listening to our homeowners, our residents across Plymouth Township. And I keep coming back to what I call a unique residency proposition. What is it that makes people want to live in Plymouth Township versus all the other options they have in western Wayne County and western Oakland County? And the thing that I hear time and time again, I mean, there's a number of them, but one of the ones that's right at the top is that they appreciate Plymouth Township because we do not have the traffic congestion that other similar towns and townships have around this area. So in my mind, that's part of what makes Plymouth Township such a desirable place to live. And as we do our 2025 master plan update, I think we need to address that and discuss how can we continue to maintain Plymouth Township so that it doesn't have the traffic congestion that some of our neighbors do. And so, you know, when I look at and I say traffic study, I mean, the plus or minus of this auto wash alone are probably not going to have a significant impact on the traffic on Ann Arbor Road. However, when you take that, you combine it with the traffic from Plymouth Walk, the apartments and the townhomes that are going in there, you combine that with the traffic for when the grocery store gets completed, the shopping center next door, and then the natural growth in traffic that we have already, it's pretty clear to me that we're going to be facing even more traffic issues than we have right now. Now, I will say, on the other hand, that the traffic on, you know, Ann Arbor Road, particularly eastbound, the last few weeks has gotten significantly worse. And that's because all of Plymouth Township can no longer use eastbound M14 right now. All of the entrances are shut. So everybody like myself who would normally be getting on a back road, we have to come down here. So the temporary situation you're seeing today is probably not representative of what it's going to be starting in November when they finish the eastbound portion of the freeway. However, over the long term, there's all of these impacts on the traffic study. And people have also, we didn't hear it so much tonight, but a lot of the people that wrote in talked about the fall-on effect of how the traffic on Ann Arbor Road causes issues on Haggerty, north of Ann Arbor Road. So what I really would like to see ideally is a traffic study that includes the impact of all of those points, okay? The Plymouth Walk, the grocery store, as well as the trade-off of not having the eastbound traffic because of M14, which really says we couldn't even do the traffic study till November because that's when eastbound M14 will be reopened. But I would like to see a holistic traffic study that studies the entire area and gives us a read on what are we looking at into the future. So when I say traffic study, I'm thinking of broader terms than just the car wash. And just like the situation with Meyer when we were discussing that, it's not your car wash alone that is the traffic issue. It's the compendium of all those actions together that we don't really know what it's going to be like in the future because that's not the state we're in right now. So I am concerned personally about making a recommendation to the board without a definitive traffic study as requested by the engineer. And it needs to include not just Ann Arbor Road or Wayne County, but Ann Arbor Road is an MDOT. So we need to include MDOT in this. And we need to see, once the traffic study comes up and says, here are the solutions we need to have, we need to talk to Wayne County and MDOT and see if they actually agree with those and would they be willing to invest the money to make those happen. And if so, where would the money come from? And what would be the timing? Those are things that I would personally like to know in the context of the master plan in 2025 for this area of town. So in total, it makes me concerned about making a recommendation to the board at this time. So again, I'd like to hear from our fellow commissioners.
So I guess my question to you, Tim, is, so we just stop everything? We stop building permits, we stop zoning changes, we stop, you know, I mean, the M14 program is 2 years long. The westbound is going to change, when eastbound fixes, they close down westbound. I live at Haggerty and Hines Drive right now. I can't get out of my driveway. And it's only because of the construction. It's in, you know, how long do you hold everything up? Because that's basically what I'm perceiving what you're saying. I agree with you, but it's not a right for them to don't have a decision, or not to have a decision, whether it's we're going to postpone it to do a couple more things, or we just postpone building in Plymouth.
Yeah, specifically, as I understand it, I've been to both of the briefings that MDOT had on the M14 project. The key issue is eastbound, because there's only one lane going eastbound this year, and there's no entrances from either Beck or Haggerty. Next year, there'll be 2 lanes both ways, and there'll be more entrances and exits. So I think
But
next year will be a
but
more
westbound
reasonable.
won't be.
It'll still be, though, two lanes each way, which will, I think,
But the exit's closed the other way.
well, I think they are partially, right, for part of the time. But,
What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
you know.
I think my point would be, next year is fairer, closer to reality than this year is. That's
But
my only
we
point.
don't move forward on any projects in Plymouth until then?
Well, I think the question is, in this particular case, do we move forward until we know until we agree what the master plan is for this? So it's kind of a two-pronged question. And those are good points. Bill, what were you going to say?
But we're not doing a brand-new master plan. We're supposed to revise it and update it, right? And I don't have the wherewithal, right, from having done this for 8 or 20 or 30 years, right, to know how much time it takes, right? Is that a 3-month proposition, a 6-month, a 9-month, right? I think we owe it to the presenters here to say with honesty and integrity how much time it will take to get something done and done right. Not quick, but done right.
It'll take a while.
That's what I thought.
It will take a while.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how fair it is to ask them to wait 6 months or a year to do anything. I mean,
Fair enough.
that's not business friendly. I mean,
Chairman Cebulski?
Yes.
If I could just interject, it would be, I think, a helpful exercise to go through a corridor and multiple corridor studies to see what the traffic, anticipated traffic could be with different land uses, right? That is a helpful exercise that municipalities should go through in determining future land uses. However, that is a costly process and would likely need to be authorized by the Board of Trustees in order to take that next step. But I think what is within the Planning Commission's purview here is to, if you made a decision on this application, you could also, at the same time, make another motion later on in this meeting for a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to do such a study or to find, the financial feasibility of conducting such a study and the time frame for that, so that that doesn't just languish, and that maybe that does get some traction.
But if we were going to make that second motion or that recommendation to the Board of Trustees,
It's not tied to this project.
no, it's not tied to this project, but you mean, so I'm trying to understand exactly what you said. So we went through this exercise to look at the different corridors, the major corridors in the township, and then decide what would be the next step. So you would do a modeling of what would it look like if it was all commercial, or what it would look like if it was all
Different
retail?
residential or industrial, and yeah, that's something I think Spalding would probably help out with.
Yeah, that's something we have to look at, but I don't think it's so easy to make it like quick. Probably take a lot of funding and the resources for all of that. So
Sounds expensive.
yes.
Well, I was under the impression, and I still kind of support that we would, on this master plan, we're kind of getting divergent here, that it would be a modification. I mean, there are parts of the master plan that can just be updated, new census data and that kind of thing. And then look at areas, this was one that we had already talked about quite a bit at length when we did just reflect on that and discuss that a little bit deeper before we would want to make that recommendation to the trustees.
I'm sorry, Dennis, what?
Yeah, that we would reflect on what, she's suggesting and discuss it more in detail, not tonight.
In other words, no motion tonight, but we
Right,
add it to the
But that's
discussions.
something that think about it and see what you think, and Laura can give us some additional information about that when we have.
You're
more
suggesting
time.
we postpone?
Not this, I'm just
Okay.
talking about
About
the
this.
corridor, right,
Yeah,
the
okay,
studies.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean,
about the
that's-
major corridors.
that totally makes sense,
Right.
yeah.
No, we have to move on this.
So we need to
So,
decide on how we want to make a motion.
Right, but did you have something, it looks like you're ready to say something here.
After 2.5 hours of reading me pretty,
Yeah.
pretty well. We're gonna have to do a traffic study anyhow. I'm not sure if the traffic study is part of the rezone or whatever it is. But I think what I was talking to Jill about, we could compile data from the shopping center to the west with the unnamed grocer. They're always confidential, that group. So the Amazon grocery store all the way out to the car dealership, and we could, compile the traffic data for the community. Am I saying that correctly? This is all the way out to 275.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the data that we'd want to have, right?
Unfortunately, I think the township has had a lot of traffic studies over the years, and they just don't carry much credibility with the public, and I think it would need to be an engineering, now, I appreciate the offer, but I
Yeah.
think it would need to be,
We would do it with Spalding Dedecker. We would work with the township engineer and do it in conjunction with them. That's what we'd foot the bill for it in conjunction. Your township engineer would supervise it and everything else.
When we did Plymouth Walk was not well received.
yeah, and the one of the racetrack and some others.
Right, right. We've had others. For example, when we did Plymouth Walk, there was a traffic study. It was hard for people to really hold much credence to its findings.
We'd have to do a proposed traffic study anyhow, so we're happy to increase the scope of information, so it's helpful for the community. That's all.
Well,
I have a question for Attorney Bennett. There are a number of elements of the conditions being proposed by the applicant that need to be changed or updated. Can we go ahead and approve this tonight without that? Or do we need to wait until we get the updated letter?
You could condition your approval on their inclusion of these 4 or 5 additional conditions. And those specific additional conditions should be proposed and described by the applicant and not by the commission.
Would we need to list those individually in the motion, or would we let them come back with the conditions themselves as they describe it?
Either one.
And what do you
I
show?
think the
as-
conditions have to be in writing, so
Yeah, what do you show as the list of the,
what I have is that they would do a noise study as a condition to the rezoning. The open hours would be limited from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days per week. The rezoning is going to be limited to a car wash, which is a special use and would still require special use approval from the planning commission, which would mean if they don't get their special use, that property is going to be basically useless. The next one would be resurfacing the private drive that is subject to the easement to Haggerty. And the last one I have is 2 rows of trees on the north side of the property. And my understanding is those have been voluntarily proposed by the applicant. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And they have to be in writing. So they would have to be, if the commission wants to do this today without the additional terms in writing, then the application would have to be amended before it goes to the board to include those specific provisions in writing.
Well,
Kevin, could that be done?
I'm not sure the motion that I
administratively, or
make is
does
the
it have to
motion
be
that you
done at another
want.
meeting
But,
if we would
Well, we'll vote
want
and
to
see.
move forward with and wait for a written?
You could do it today, subject the recommendation to the inclusion of those written conditions in the application to the township board.
Right, right.
Because all the commission does is make a recommendation. It doesn't grant approval or disapproval. So you could condition your recommendation, boy. And I'm thinking on this, I would rather have in writing first, because they do have to be in writing and unilaterally imposed.
okay. You probably guess I've done a lot of reflecting on this proposal. I think that the applicant has made some really major changes versus the previous proposal. All vacuums being indoors is a very big, I think, addresses a lot of the concerns. The building is set back 125 feet versus the existing 70 feet, or at least that is the entrance. With the new pay stations, it won't be set back quite that far. But in any case, it's set back quite a bit farther than it is right now. This is one business, whereas previously it was two businesses, a car wash and a Starbucks. So certainly the overall traffic impact, particularly on the neighbors next door, would have to be substantially less. And the proposal, if it's amended in writing, reflects 111 trees versus 9 required, and a 40-foot strip versus an 8 to 6-foot strip behind. So they've made a lot of changes, and changes that I think are receptive to the feedback of the community. So those are what I see as the benefits. For me personally, I believe that to approve this without completing the master plan is cart before the horse. And I apologize to the applicants because I think they have a very good proposal. But as a planning commission member, I don't feel comfortable recommending we approve this without having the discussion about the master plan in this section of land use. So therefore, I don't want to make a proposal or a motion this time, because I don't think it's the motion that the rest of you seem to be in favor of.
Okay, so take a straw, what's your reaction to all of this?
I'm for recommendation, but we have to address the written.
Right. It would be in a formal motion, we have to formalize.
We have to, yeah.
What the commission's options today are, you can recommend approval, recommend denial, or table it.
Or what was the last one?
Table it.
Oh, table.
Which is what my proposal would be.
Well, table it until we get their written revisions.
Supplemental conditions.
Right.
Yeah, but Tim's saying table it till,
Till there's a master plan
Yeah.
resolved in the master plan, which is a long process.
yeah, that's too long.
It's a long process. Bill, did you have thoughts?
My thoughts are tabling it with the traffic study, okay? Not necessarily for 6 or 9 months of the master plan. I think that's too long. I think the changes and improvements that the team has come forward are very sound, right? I do want to understand the traffic. I think safety is number one, right? And I think they've mitigated the smell, the noise, the light, okay? But traffic and the safety of traffic, right? And that facility right now in that building, it is a safety issue as we sit here right now. We're like anyone's fallen and broken their leg, to be honest.
You have similar thoughts?
I would be for it.
Yeah. So is the appropriate course of action here to table it until we receive the revised conditions that they want to put forth?
The conditions, yes, and the
No.
traffic study.
Yeah, I'm asking.
Okay, all right, I'll back up, sorry.
That would be appropriate?
Yes.
And the traffic study as well?
That's discretionary with the commission.
Okay. Okay, what do you think about the traffic study?
I don't think we'd have to wait for that, or they shouldn't have to wait for that. I mean, we've been talking about master plan for a year now.
Oh, I know.
And we're no farther ahead, other than a couple topics.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think these gentlemen are gonna sit and wait for a year. I'm sorry.
No.
And lady, are not gonna wait a year to 2 years more for a traffic study.
No, oh,
So I think if we want to table it, I think we should table it on the basis of the additional items that they're proposing, and whether that could be next meeting or administratively, I don't know that, so. At our meeting. So we'd have to, can we still do it next month if we?
Or can't we approve it with the conditions, or no?
no,
No.
we have to have those conditions in writing.
Okay.
But, Laura, will the traffic study be required in the site plan approval?
During the special land use
Or a
process.
special
it
land
would.
use process? So they're gonna have to do it regardless.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
But as this is a conditional rezoning, the applicant has to propose at this stage.
Well, let's see if he goes through all the rest of the steps before we even get to that point, I think. Because he has to have approval by the Board of Trustees before you come back, so, I don't know, in the interest of saving you guys money, I guess, do the traffic study, and it may not be necessary if you don't get past this point. We don't know how the Board of Trustees will vote.
Correct, you're right. So would the next steps for us then, just so I understand, we'd update our conditional rezoning letter, is that with the conditions, is that accurate? Resubmit it and be on the next agenda for the planning, and in the interim, we'd have to prepare a traffic study anyhow?
The traffic study is really up to you, I guess.
We're gonna go ahead and do it,
Oh, okay.
but would that at least afford us the opportunity to come back in front of you at the next available meeting?
Yeah, we can, you don't know how busy the next meeting is, do you?
Yeah, we'd have to take a look at that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
April 16th.
Yeah, April 16th, because this meeting is a little later than
Okay.
typical.
So you'll let us know, and we
yeah,
appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. I think we could do it next month, because I don't see much further discussion on this topic. We've kind of beaten it to death here.
Guilty.
And, go ahead.
The 5 conditions that Kevin outlined are very clear, okay? I just want to make sure drawings are,
For the record, they brought them up.
yes, which they've willingly. I'd like to make sure these drawings are updated with the side shields on the lights, and the answer comes back on relocating the lights 27 feet closer to the facility as opposed to being closer to the homeowners.
That's
right?
gotta be unilaterally imposed by the applicant.
Right.
We can't ask them to do that.
Right. I just want to restate that again, right? So they hear the question I brought up about 2 hours ago, one more time, and then they can take it away and come back and put it in or not at their discretion.
Correct.
And deferring 1 month, I'm okay with. I'm not against waiting.
Yeah, we can postpone this is the right term, as I remember. We can postpone this for a period of, I'll just say 3 months, but you can come back anytime before the 3 months. Hopefully you can be here next month. You can get on the agenda, and we'll take it from there. But we'll give you the extra time should something comes up or you need it.
That'd be great, and we'll give us some time to address some of the comments that were brought up today.
Okay. All right, so you don't want to make the agenda, or make the motion?
If I have to.
Well, that would be good if you did.
Okay, all right. Regarding PC number 2543, 40700 Ann Arbor Road, conditional rezoning auto wash. I move that we postpone the discussion pending the receival of an updated letter of conditional rezoning from the applicant that addresses the issues in writing that they mentioned that they would do tonight.
Postpone for up to 3 months.
Postpone for up to 3 months.
Is there support for that?
Yeah, I'll second. I'll third it.
Okay.
I'll second. Stuart beat me to the punch, sorry.
Need a roll.
Okay, okay, so it was motion by you, okay. All right.
Do we need a roll call vote?
Yeah, I think, so it's been moved and supported to postpone this application for up to 3 months, subject to receiving written statement of conditions from the applicant.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does sound right.
Okay.
I'm a yes.
And we'll take a roll call. You want to call the roll?
Sure. Okay, Commissioner Ikes?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. Stuart?
Yes.
And Dave?
Yes.
And myself is yes.
Okay. All right. Motion carries, so thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank everybody for your
And
time this
thank you
evening.
to everybody who came out tonight to listen to the proposal and provide your comments.
And considering all of the options, and thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you very much for having us.
We'll just wait a minute or two.
The restroom.
Yeah. Can we have like, Dennis, can we have like 5 minutes?
Break.
Okay,
so
okay,
somebody
5
else needs
minutes,
it?
and I'm going to set
Yeah.
the clock.
The bill comes up.
Absolutely. And I don't want to make my own personal. I want to make it based on.
You have to reflect the township, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's not just these residents. it's the whole town.
And I think that's, and to be honest,
That's just the elevation. Yeah, that should, that really should. I mean, I went through, the crazy part is like when we first
okay, folks, for those of you that are discussing the car wash, can you move outside the room because we have other business we still need to conduct tonight? Thank you.
We moved it 2 years ago. It has to be the. Ever since then, there was from like 275, now it's 714. And next year, it's gonna be the other side. Well, we'll see. You know, so. That traffic jams up in the morning. My wife, you can't get out, she has to go around.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I think,
I sure hope so.
well, thank you for coming.
The subdivision over here is very highly sensitive to cut-through traffic.
Anybody.
Mike Fritz put the speed cart in front of my house 3 times, and that's, businesses that have carousel involving traffic.
Yeah.
That don't have the integrity or fortitude to make it to Hanover Trail and turn right, they cut down the railroad.
Is that how they?
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're all here?
Yeah, we are.
All right, we'll turn on our mics again. Okay,
Mike is on.
back from adjournment, and so we're at at our own application, the text amendment to the zoning ordinance, number 99, Article 2.
Dennis?
Oh,
Loud.
you
Mic
can't-
on or loud?
Mic on?
Can you hear me?
She couldn't hear you.
Am I on now?
Yeah, yeah. I think you just weren't talking as loud as you were earlier.
Oh, maybe I had some-
You must be wearing down.
Yeah, okay. So Laura, do you want to present this?
Yes, request though, since there is no one from the public to discuss the sign notice requirements, Could we have a motion to move to new business A first and B, just to handle the applicants that are here and then come back?
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move on to, just a moment.
You want a motion to move to 5C or 6A and 6B?
6A to
And
6B,
then circle
yes.
back to 5B?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's moved by Commissioner,
So I'll make a motion for PC 2516,
Okay.
right, and 2553, new
Okay.
business to be next on the agenda. And then we'll
Ikes.
circle
And I
back.
second.
and Ikes and Boyd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So the adult care home facility, special land use extension.
Thank you very much. You're familiar with this application. The applicant and his architect here this evening were before you back in April of 2024, where the special land use for a adult group care home was approved at the corner of Canton Center Road and Joy Road, the northeast corner. The approved special land use concept plan detailed the conditions of approval, and as a single unit dwelling, no site plan is required, so the concept plan will be reviewed by the building department when such building permits are requested. The special land use does expire within 1 year of approval, but the applicant per the zoning ordinance has the ability to request a 1 year or a 6-month extension, which they have requested. With that 6-month extension, they would be looking at October 17th of this year to secure development plans and submit for a building permit. So they're asking for that additional 6 months in order to finalize their contract with a group home user. And they provided documentation March 7th to that effect. They're here tonight if you have any questions, but the recommendation is to grant the 6-month extension that's allowed by the ordinance. And there's a sample motion on page 2 of our memo.
Did you have anything to add?
No, Laura explained it very eloquently.
Okay,
Hope to be breaking ground.
okay. Questions from the commission? Nothing, okay. Well, is there a motion to approve the extension request?
I move that we approve PC 2516 to extend for 6 months the special land use extension for adult group care home facility.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Commissioner
Support it.
Pop and supported by Commissioner Ikes to approve the 6-month extension on application 2516. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Bring it home.
Yeah. TikTok.
Okay,
Thanks
next
for your patience.
is the fence modification at 4600 Plymouth Road.
Yes. This project is for the facility that's located behind the Durr Building off of Plymouth Road. In our memo, we provided just a screenshot, a street view of the area that's to be impacted. There's an existing 8-foot brick wall here. That portion would be removed and an aluminum 8-foot fence is proposed in its place. It would be a black decorative fence, but because it is 8 feet in height and a modification to the plan, the ordinance states that it must go before the Planning Commission. We do recommend approval of this modification. It doesn't significantly impact the site. The proposed fencing material by the applicant is standard industrial grade. So it's pretty straightforward, I think, with this request. But it does fall under the purview of this commission.
You know what? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to know why. They got a nice brick wall there. It hides everything, right? You have to worry about people stealing things or seeing what's in there versus this pitchfork type fence, right? Where you can see what's in there. you know, what was the case of what
That's why we're
drives?
gonna ask the fence guy.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole thing that is going on there, but I think they either leased or sold the building that's right out in the front of the site, I think. And so this is changing the way traffic flows in the site. I think the gate opening now is only like 12-foot opening. It's very small. So they wanted to expand it to like a 24-foot opening, and that's why they need to take the wall.
So it's a swinging gate?
A sliding gate.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing on that property? What kind of business is it?
I don't know.
Okay. All right,
Storage in the building, I think. I'm not sure.
okay. Okay, what's the commission's take on this?
So it's 8 feet instead of 6, is that it?
Has to come before us.
That's part of it, and it's a 1 inch instead of 3 inch at the peaks of the forks on the fence at the very top. Okay.
When they make this application, shouldn't they indicate why they need that kind of fence?
I think they submitted this to the building department and it got kicked up
Oh,
to planning because of the 8-foot ordinance requirements, yeah.
And they properly flagged the 1 by 3 inch, which is what the ordinance says, and it's actually a 1 inch by pitch at the top.
yeah, I don't
It's
think,
narrower than what they prescribed, those are the two things, the
Yeah.
height and the width of the pitch.
I was confused by that too, because I think the 1 by 3 must be referring to like a wood picket.
Yes.
Or something.
That's what it was written for.
Right.
Probably a long time ago.
You know. And the existing wall and gate is 8 foot high though.
okay. Well, anyone want to make a motion? Or does anyone have objection to it or questions?
No.
Okay. All right, who wants to make the motion?
Okay, Mr. Chair, regarding PC number 2553, fence modification request at 40600 Plymouth Road, recommend approval as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Boyd and supported by Commissioner Ikes to grant the fence modification for application 2553. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good evening, guys.
You too.
Appreciate your
I hope
patience.
you enjoyed yourself.
I've been in that parking lot though, now he's lost the tire, I think, so it's a hazard.
Yeah.
It should almost be like closed off.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now we get back to the text amendment.
Yes, thank you.
So do you want to lead off discussion or presentation?
Certainly. So as we've discussed, there's no formal codified requirement for sign noticing for rezoning, much less a cluster housing or planned unit development. We talked about the different size and placements and specifics of the sign at the February meeting, and the revised language is provided in ordinance format, starting on page 2 of our memo. We are scheduled for a public hearing this evening, and after that occurs, it would be appropriate for the commission to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees with any changes necessary.
Okay. All right, well, we'll open the public hearing at 9:35.
You want to go out there? Can you excuse for a minute?
And so Laura, I have a question though. You know, on the agendas now, I never have seen this before. Should we have a motion to open the public hearing and then close it? Because we usually just declare open and closed. What's the appropriate?
You're supposed to.
You're supposed to have the motion to open and close it? Who said that? You did? Well, I think that's
Thank
what the
you.
trustees do, don't they?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start doing that. So is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I propose we open the public hearing
Okay.
regarding PC.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Boyd and supported by Commissioner Ikes to open the public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Anyone here wishes to speak to this item at 9:35? Okay.
Anybody watching outside, there's nobody here in the audience to speak.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing at 9:36?
Mr. Chair, I propose we close the public hearing at 9:36 PM.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Boyd, supported by Commissioner Pop to close the public hearing at 9:36, I think I said. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Any discussion?
Just one thing, right? I like the fact it says who's doing what, okay? The sign material has to be reviewed, right, by the planning department, right? It's time bounded when you put it up, when you notify the public, and when you take it down. And it says it must be removed from the premises. So I think we did a good job of not having something just thrown on the ground laying there.
Yeah, the only thing I've noticed is the one sign, and this I think was brought up when we had the initial discussion about it. The one applicant that had one of those signs and just sort of whitewashed it and then uses it for advertising his wares.
Sparse.
Is there a sign permit that needs to be done if that's going to happen, or?
That would be the ordinance officer should be on top of that, so.
Yeah, this wouldn't trigger a sign permit, but if someone were to whitewash their sign or put a banner or something over it, it would be a temporary sign and it would need a permit. There is a process, a separate process for that with the building department, and it would just take the enforcement to go out there.
So that would be complaint driven to get to that point? Oh, okay. All right.
Drive by.
But you do have in here that it's the duty of them
To remove it, that's true.
Within 7 days, yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
What'd you say?
Removed from the premises.
Yeah, right.
Within 7 days. So you don't just take it out, throw it on the
No,
ground.
because that's what has happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our ordinance guy probably needs to be made aware, so he pays a visit to the site on the 7th day. So there's some communication internally in the building here.
Do you think that will happen?
Yep,
Okay.
we can let the code enforcement officer know.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? So we would, this would be a motion to recommend approval of the draft by the BOT.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's 7 days after of the date that's on the sign, but what happens if it gets postponed? Or doesn't, once we have a public hearing,
Public
it's done?
once it has to happen.
Okay.
Even
perfect.
though, isn't that what we've done in the past? If the applicant isn't here, we still have to have the
Correct,
public hearing.
correct.
Okay.
So,
All right.
And it still has to be taken down after the public hearing, because the last time we did this at the unit on Northville Road by 5 Mile, right, there was ambiguity, and the realtor actually asked me in the hallway, well, who's supposed to take the sign down? I said, the applicant, but he's in Maine. We understand he was here, right, so it needs to happen, right? But we didn't have a time bounding, which is why I spoke up back at the January
well,
meeting.
yeah, and we
And it's
didn't
still
have
up.
this here.
It's still up.
It's still up.
Oh, it's still up?
Yeah.
Well, I think I saw that sign because I drove by there. And
I
I thought,
you know what I
why-
should do is
you know,
I should
thought,
go
is there a
get
reason-
that, because
That's
I have
right,
to
you
get
should,
my
exactly.
property rezoned. I'm just gonna take it, put it in the woods
Exactly.
till I
There you go.
need it.
So you could take it off, remove it from the process,
Ooh.
the premises,
garage.
and move it to your
I don't have a
premises.
garage. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
Problem solved, huh?
Problem solved.
why not?
You'd probably be happy that you would take
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah, that's what happens at 9:30 when you haven't had dinner.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments?
Nope.
So we're all good?
We're all
all
good.
good.
Okay, is there a motion to forward this recommendation to the Board of Trustees?
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we move the Sign notice requirements for rezoning cluster housing option or PUD application to the Board of Trustees for final approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Boyd and supported by Commissioner Ikes to, well, we don't have application number 2. Our recommendation to the Board of Trustees on text amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then miscellaneous business, your monthly report. Does anyone have questions on it, or do you have anything you wanted to point out? Okay. Anybody else have any questions on the monthly report?
No.
See, I told that guy it was good to be the last thing on the agenda. And then our annual report to the Board of Trustees. Laura, anything from you that we should be aware of?
No, I just made a couple of changes as requested from February.
Okay. Good. And how about the commissioners? Do they have any concerns? Nothing? Okay. Is there a motion to forward the annual report to the Board of Trustees?
Mr. Chair, I move we forward the revised draft 2024 annual report of activities by the Planning Commission to the Board of Trustees.
Support. Moved by Commissioner Boyd and supported by Commissioner Ladowick. That's who did it?
Yeah.
Okay, Ladowick, okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any comments from the commissioner? Thoughts? Okay.
Laura, thank you for the update on the master plan work, and we look forward to next steps.
All right. So is our motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:42?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Is there support? Moved by Commissioner Ikes and supported by Commissioner Ladowick to adjourn at 9:42. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Thank you.